The Mischievous Matchmaker, River City Sweethearts, written by Susan Hatler, narrated by Martha Lee.
Chapter 1. Some women believe in for better or worse. My mother preferred to kiss my dad or arrivederci to go find herself, and she'd chosen the most awkward phase of my life to do this. I'd been 15 when she left us. As a teen Barbie look-alike, I had hormone-driven guys calling constantly and no mom to give me advice. To multiply my misery, my dad had married my stepmom, Janet, and I'd spent the rest of my teen years being compared to her can-do-no-wrong daughter, Caitlin. Not my fondest memories. Despite my parents' failed marriage and my own fleeting relationships, I'd found hope in the romance novels I'd devoured, hope for the kind of love that lasted a lifetime. So I'd never given up, and now I had Brad. After years dating the wrong men, I'd finally found a keeper. Brad Jones and I had been inseparable for 3 weeks. He was fun, gorgeous, and a total gentleman. Ready to take the next step with him, I'd hit the mall yesterday, purchased the perfect lingerie, and tonight I'd put it to good use. Although it was 5:30 in the morning, I strode through the front door of Totally Fit, ready to rock my Zumba class like I'd never taught it before. Good morning. Morning, Mel. Matt Thompson, my coworker and friend, smiled from behind the front counter and closed the thick book he'd been reading. What's the word? I dropped my athletic bag on the tattered linoleum floor and set my portable iPod docking station on the counter. The word of the day is yumsy. Matt stood, leaned against the counter, and raised a brow. Yumsy? Visions of my date last night with Brad danced through my head. We'd gone to the Sacramento Kings game, which had been a blast. Afterward, we'd stopped for drinks at a posh bar downtown, then strolled hand in hand to my place, where things had gotten hot and heavy. Remembering his delicious kisses made me smile. Yumsy. Matt wrapped his fingers on the cheap white countertop. Is it safe to assume you're not talking about food? I shook my head and my ponytail flipped to the opposite shoulder. Actually, he could be considered dessert. Matt frowned. Is he the guy you've been flirting with over in free weights? Brad, I sighed, picturing how our names might look in monotype cursiva on our eventual wedding invitations. Melanie Porter and Brad Jones forever. Mel. Matt slipped his hands around mine and traced my knuckles in slow circles, sending goosebumps up my neck. When are you going to give up on other guys and realize I'm the one for you? Matt loved to flirt, but thanks to Erica, I knew not to take him seriously. Erica Connor, the other aerobics instructor at Totally Fit, had dated Matt a few times after he'd started working here last year. She'd told me, confidentially, that she'd broken it off after finding out he was seeing other girls. Playing the field was so not my scene. Aren't you already dating someone, Matt? His eyes locked with mine. I'd drop all women for you. No, really, I said, ignoring the electric zap bolting through me from his intense gaze. Instead, I focused on the image of a petite brunette wearing a sexy red dress and dancing very close to Matt. You're dating that girl. You introduced her to me at the Oasis a few weeks ago when the girls and I were out celebrating Erica's final laser hair removal. Laser hair removal? His shoulders jerked spastically as if ants were crawling up his neck. That's way more than I needed to know. I rolled my eyes. My point is, you had a girl with you. Eileen, that's over. He continued caressing my knuckles with the perfect amount of pressure. So, let's go on a date, anywhere you want. As he expertly massaged my hands, a tingle curled up my spine, and I couldn't help wondering what his other talents might be. But at 27, I couldn't afford the distraction from a meaningful relationship, no matter how tempting. Regretfully, I slipped my hands free. You know, Matt, I only know what you tell me. His endearing expression warmed my belly, but I refused to fall for him. Besides, I had Brad now. I can't date you. He gave me a side glance.
Sure you can.
Hey, I tapped his arm playfully. You just said you only know what I tell you. He shrugged.
I take it back.
I guffawed. Your word's your word. You can't just take it back.
Too late?
He grinned.
Already did.
Why would you want to go out with me anyway? My tone was casual, even though I was secretly dying to know. I mean, you're getting a PhD in philosophy, and I'm an aerobics instructor. We have zilch in common. I cringed, remembering the time he'd told me Plato fascinated him. I'd replied that as a kid, I'd eaten my fair share of Plato and loved the salty taste. Matt had explained that Plato had been a Greek philosopher. He hadn't laughed at my mistake, but I'd clearly supplied him with enough ammo to fire off an entirely new batch of blonde jokes. So mortifying. Suddenly, the corners of his mouth curved upward.
I want to date you because you make cleaning toilets fun.
Now, there's a compliment, I laughed, knowing what he was referring to. Rudy, the owner of Totally Fit, had canceled the janitorial service last week to save a few bucks. That left the staff with the task of cleaning the bathrooms. Yuck. To make it bearable, I'd created the echo competition. We each took turns singing at the top of our lungs while scrubbing to see who could make the worst-sounding echo. I'd never have guessed our voices could crack like that. We have good times, don't we?
My day brightens every time I'm with you, so say yes and go out with me.
His tone sounded deadly serious, which was so unlike him. Stunned, I bit my lip, then swallowed. I'm with Brad. His jaw tensed, then he started straightening the various business cards, brochures, and workout schedules displayed on the counter, even though they were already in impeccable order.
He's wrong for you.
Tension thickened like a wall between us, but what could I do? Matt may be sweet, but casual dating didn't interest me. My mom had told my dad till death do us part, then she'd hightailed it to Colorado or wherever she currently lived. It was my life's mission to be the exact opposite of that woman. Thinking of my mom caused a stab of pain. She and I hadn't spoken much in the last year because I'd been avoiding her calls. Hearing about her adventures, with a new man almost every time, had gotten old and only reminded me that Dad and I hadn't been enough. Unfortunately, I didn't know if it felt worse talking to her or not talking to her. Ding ding. The front door punched open behind me and I swiveled to see Steve Burns, trainer extraordinaire, or so he liked to call himself.
Morning, all.
His face lit up as he strode in.
What's the word?
Matt waved Steve over.
Give me the skinny on this yumsy guy Mel's obsessing over. She's under the absurd impression he's right for her.
My brows shot up in alarm. Was there really some skinny, that had been yesterday's word, on Brad? Steve sidled up to the counter wearing black shorts and a red t-shirt with Steve Burns printed underneath the dumbbell logo.
What are we talking about? Don't we have a word yet? How can we not have a word? The word of the day is yumsy.
Matt shot him an annoyed look, then jerked a thumb in my direction.
Her choice, not mine. Fill me in, people.
Steve rotated his hands in circles toward himself.
Fill me in.
I slapped my palms on the counter and searched Matt's deep brown eyes for the truth. Is there really a skinny on Brad, something I should know about? He stared at me a moment, then shrugged.
Nothing specific, just a feeling.
I let out an audible sigh of relief. No way I'd return my silky lingerie based on Matt's random feeling. Steve clucked.
Why do I feel like something is going on here?
Because you're paranoid. I touched his arm as the front door dinged open again. Trust me, everything's zippy. I picked the word yumsy because I have a hot date tonight with you-know-who. What? Erica Connor raced through the lobby, then stopped by my side. A familiar comfort washed over me with the entire gang here this Tuesday morning. You didn't snag that hottie who's been giving me the eye all week, did you? My heart galloped in my chest. Who's been giving you the eye? You know. Erica shifted her curvy hip to the right, then smiled. He's tall, gorgeous, and has muscles I'm dying to rub my hands over. Yes, that described Brad and half the other guys who worked out here. I'm seeing Brad Jones. Is that the same guy? Brad. Erica tapped a finger against her cheek, then dropped her smirk. Nope, different guy. I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. Steve tossed his arm over my shoulder.
Why's this yumsy date so important to you?
Yumsy? Erica laughed.
Word of the day.
Matt's voice lacked any trace of enthusiasm. He's it, you guys, I said, thinking about how much fun Brad and I had together. How he always put his hand on the small of my back when we walked, and the way he kissed me like he never wanted to stop.
You're blushing.
Matt crossed his arms and gave me a skeptical look.
What's this guy have that I don't have?
Erica and I exchanged a look. Brad and I want the same things. We're in sync. Except for last night when he'd wanted to take the next step and I'd been wearing my cotton brief backups instead of silky slide-your-hands-over-this bikinis. Why, oh why, had I put off the laundry? Haven't you ever just known when it's the right person? Steve's brows quirked.
Didn't you say that about the last guy you were dating?
Erica dropped her chin onto her fist and nodded. Paul. That was months ago, I reminded them. Paul had seemed exceptional, but after several weeks he'd stopped calling. Weird.
You barely even know this new guy, Mel.
Matt took on the role of a wise philosopher.
Face it, you're in love with being in love.
I shrugged. Think what you will, but my gut says Brad is the one.
Well, he'd be lucky to have you, Mel.
Steve mussed the front of my hair much like a big brother might. I pretended to glare at Steve, then laughed as I pushed away from him to check my reflection in the mirror hanging next to the poster of a silver-haired man jogging in the breaking dawn. I combed my blonde bangs back into place with my fingers and caught Matt watching me in the mirror. He gave me a look that I couldn't decipher. With that out of the way, Erica did a drum roll on the countertop. I have news. I spun around, my eyes widening. You're pregnant. No. Erica propped her hands on her hips, then shook her head. I don't use 3 types of birth control for nothing. Steve held his palms up.
Too much information, Connor.
My brain got stuck on which 3 types of birth control she used at the same time. Condom, pill, and what else did a girl need? Get your minds out of the gutter. Erica smirked, most likely enjoying the hot topic. It's about totally fit.
Safe subject.
Steve blew out a breath, gestured widely with his arm, then bowed to her.
You may continue.
The big cheese has an important meeting in his office tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Matt wagged his finger at Erica.
Sounds like you've been listening to Rudy's conversations from the janitor's closet again. That's not very yumsy of you.
Maybe I needed a broom. She shrugged, then cocked her perfectly curved hip to the left. Can I continue? Please do, I said, eager to hear the news on Totally Fit. I'd started teaching aerobics part-time in college, then ended up staying when Rudy offered me a full-time position. I loved my job, but my measly salary barely covered my bills, and a couple months ago I'd spent my life savings on my new convertible Volkswagen Beetle, Betty. If the gym was going to fold, I needed to know. Erica raised her arms for dramatic effect. It sounds like the big cheese might have found a way to keep Totally Fit from going under. How? I'd worried Rudy would lose the gym for sure. He'd already hawked the stereo system, leaving me to lug around my own portable for dance music during my classes. I knew how much Rudy loved Totally Fit. He was a total softie. It'd crush him to lose the gym. What did you find out? I'm not sure exactly. Erica's face grew serious. He just kept saying grazie to whoever was on the other end of the line, and then he told them to meet here in his office tomorrow at 4 o'clock. She held her palms up. That's all I know. Steve tisk-tisked.
You should have stayed to look for a dustpan while you were at it.
Erica frowned. Like you'd know squat around here if it wasn't for me.
We appreciate all the dirt, Connor.
Matt patted Erica's arm and she promptly perked up. It amazed me that Erica didn't hold a grudge against Matt for dating around behind her back. The way they acted, there didn't seem to be any hard feelings between them. I shook my head, pushing Erica and Matt's odd relationship out of my mind. My class isn't until 6:30 tomorrow night. Might be a little suspicious if I come in at 4, don't you think? Matt turned away and opened his novel again. What, no wise suggestion from the bookworm? I shrugged it off. With the perfect night dangling in the air, I didn't need Matt wreaking havoc on my emotions, or creating worry lines before I hit 30. I hope Rudy has a solution up his sleeve.
You and me both, sister.
Erica eased around the desk as the door dinged open and a chatter of voices floated into the lobby.
We'd better get our booties to work. I'll see you all tomorrow in the janitor's closet at 4 sharp.
I picked up my sports bag, slung it over my shoulder, then checked my watch. 13 hours and 3 minutes until my big date with Brad. Forcing the worry about work out of my mind, I pictured myself slipping into my sheer, ruffled baby doll nightie. It was sexy, see-through, and would encourage Brad to get right down to it. Talk about yumsy. No point playing hard to get when Brad was exactly what I wanted. I glanced back at Matt, who was greeting a perky redhead as she entered the lobby. For some reason, it stung that he didn't believe in Brad and me. As I strode back toward the workout area, Matt's accusation that I was in love with being in love buzzed through my brain. Then I shook my head. Matt was a philosopher, not a love guru. It shouldn't matter what he thought of my relationship. Unfortunately, it was all I could think about. Chapter 2. Great class, Mel. Kristen Moore stretched into a pike position after Zumba and pressed her stomach down to her thighs. This is the perfect start to my workday. Aw, that's sweet of you, Kristen. I dropped down onto the mat next to her. I'd met Kristen a couple months ago when she joined Totally Fit and started taking my classes. She was smart, successful, and her new boyfriend definitely fell into the yumsy category. How are things with Ethan? A soft smile played at her lips. We spent the weekend in San Francisco and toured the Filoli estate while we were down there. Have you been? Nope. Splaying my legs, I tilted over one side, feeling the tight pull in my hamstring. Never heard of it. Sitting up, she brought a heel to her inner thigh, then folded toward her knee. It's a historical country estate in Woodside from the early 20th century. The house is amazing, and the gardens are absolutely breathtaking. Definitely worth checking out. I stretched my arms over my head, then leaned forward, wrapping my hands around my foot. Sounds like a fun day trip. I'll mention it to Brad. A look I couldn't read crossed her face. Things are going well with you two? Couldn't be better. Despite my confident words, Matt's comment still bugged me, and I had to force a smile. Brad is a great guy, and I'm really happy. Since Matt's doubts about Brad had flooded my mind throughout class, I felt the need to reaffirm I was excited about our relationship. Kristen didn't seem to be buying it, though, which figured since she's a family therapist and trained at reading people. She straightened her spine, then crossed her legs. Want to tell me what's really going on? Sitting up, I sighed. My friend Matt doesn't think Brad's right for me, and I value his opinion. Her face remained blank. Did Matt tell you why? Just that it's a feeling he has about Brad. I glanced toward the door to make sure no lurking ears could hear us. Matt also asked me out this morning. Ah, the plot thickens. She leaned toward me. What did you say? No, of course. My cheeks heated, so I fiddled with the end of my ponytail. I'm with Brad. Her mouth curved upward. What if you weren't? I tossed my hair over my shoulder. You don't understand. Matt sees lots of women. Another instructor at the gym here went out with him, then learned he was playing the field. She seemed unfazed by my statement. Were they exclusive? My mouth opened halfway, then paused. Her eyes narrowed slightly. How do you know he wouldn't settle down with you? My pulse quickened and I shook my head. Matt reads Plato and I read People magazine. She shrugged. Opposites attract all the time. Why not ask him? You said you value his opinion, so I assume he'd be honest with you. Plus, you're blushing. Only because this is crazy talk. I got to my feet, then started collecting my things. I'm going out with an amazing guy, and tonight Brad and I are taking the next step. She stood, then put a hand on my shoulder. So long as Brad is who you really want. My stomach clenched. He is. Okay. She pressed her lips together, then glanced at her watch. I'd better hit the shower. I have an appointment at 8:30. Thanks again for the great workout. Sure. I pasted on a smile and wiggled my fingers in her direction. I'll see you Thursday. As soon as she was out the door, I fell back onto the mat, our conversation running through my head. No way would I ask Matt to be exclusive with me. He certainly hadn't wanted that with Erica, and she had guys falling for her all the time. Closing my eyes, I could almost feel Matt's hands on mine, and my stomach warmed. No, it didn't mean anything. Matt was just flirting with me, the way he did with practically every girl. Odd that he'd asked me out, though. Why had Kristen pressed me about that? And why were my cheeks still on fire? Dinner at the boathouse in Old Sacramento had been utterly delicious, not to mention romantic. Then Brad and I had strolled back to my place, hopped on my bed, and we were currently sliding into second base. His mouth explored mine, and I felt relieved to be with him, to not have to go through the roller coaster of dating anymore and wondering whether or not a certain guy would want to be exclusive with me. No, this was much easier. Brad ran his lips over my bare shoulder, then slipped his finger under the blue spaghetti strap, sliding it down. Privacy between roommates didn't happen often, but thankfully we hadn't seen any signs of Patti when we'd come in. I crossed my fingers that she'd gone out for the evening because things were about to progress to the next level. Time to tell Brad how I felt about him. Brad. My lips skimmed along his strong jawbone, and I whispered in his ear, "We're going to be so happy." He pulled back and gave me a look that told me he was happy now. "Oh, babe, I can't take my hands off you." Cupping his face, I looked into his eyes and nodded. Believe me, I'm ready to take the next step, to make a commitment to each other. His hands reached around my back for the zipper, but he suddenly froze. "What did you just say?" I forced a flirty smile since things had gone from hot to halt. "Just that this feels right, you and me, like it could last." He adjusted the way he was sitting and sucked in a deep breath. "It sounds like you're asking for a ring or something." I giggled nervously. "Not a ring, but now would be a good time to say how you're feeling about me, about us." "Mel, you're hot." He eyed me up and down, then cleared his throat. "I thought we were having a good time." I bit my lip. "Right, so why would we want that to end?" "Oh, man, I can't believe we're not on the same page." He stood, adjusted his jeans, then bumped his fist against his broad chest. "I'm not a ball and chain guy. I thought I made that clear." No. Or I wouldn't have wasted time envisioning our eventual wedding invitations this morning. I popped to my feet and thrust my hands to my hips. "When did you supposedly make that clear?" He pulled the keys to his yellow roadster out of his pocket, fingering them uncomfortably. "I'm sorry if I gave the wrong impression. You're great, Mel. Really." My jaw dropped as I watched him turn and slip out the door. Straightening the straps on my dress, I hurried out of the bedroom and crossed the living room to where Brad was already turning the front doorknob. I put my hand over his. "Shouldn't we talk about this?" "No can do." He shook his head, then stepped out onto the front walkway. When the door was only inches from closing, it stopped, then swung halfway open again, and he popped his head back in. "I'll, see you at the gym." The door shut in my face. My jaw tightened. Brad was so not yumsy. My hopes sank as I swiveled around and slumped back against the door. I squeezed my eyes closed, racking my brain on how I could have been so off base with him.
That display was too pathetic for words, a monotone female voice said.
I jumped and covered my heart with my hand.
Patti, I thought you weren't home.
Patti stood in the kitchen, holding a mug.
Believe me, I wish I hadn't been.
Shaking my head, I bear-hugged myself, unable to believe I'd been let down. Again. Brad and I had this amazing evening, then he literally raced out of here all because I asked where things were going with us. I thought he might be the one. Patti's short dark hair stuck out in all directions, and her Salvador Dali t-shirt was half tucked into black boxer shorts.
I hate to break this to you, Mel, but you think every guy's the one.
My throat tightened. No, I don't. Patti obviously wasn't in a sympathetic mood at this late hour of the night, not that she would have been more compassionate at any other time of the day. Expecting sympathy from Patti was like expecting a dog to meow. She raised her hand and counted on each finger.
Brad, Paul, Mike, Marcus.
Everyone's had relationships that don't work out, so what? I pursed my lips as Matt's words echoed through my head. You think I'm just in love with being in love?
Yes.
Patti threw her arms wide.
It's so frustrating watching you do this to yourself.
My eyes widened. I'm not doing anything to myself. Brad left me.
Yeah, but you fall for guys before you've even gotten to know them, Mel. Your focus is preventing him from leaving, not whether or not you really want to be with him.
At Patti's harsh words, a tear slipped down my cheek.
Oh, my. It's a definitive pattern.
Patti sighed.
One you need to change.
Apparently so. I sniffed.
I love you, Mel.
Patti sounded uncharacteristically soft.
I don't want to watch you go through this again.
Neither do I. I dropped onto our living room sofa, my eyes burning as I fought the tears back. Maybe I had too much of my mom in me to ever make a relationship work. Then I shook my head. No way. Brad had left, not me. I was nothing like my mother. I peeked up at Patti, who looked uncomfortable with my display of emotion. Finally, she came around the couch, sat, and awkwardly put her arm around me.
If it's worth anything, I think you deserve better than that wannabe Fabio anyway.
I leaned my head on her shoulder.
He was fun. So was a dog.
She shrugged, causing my face to bounce up and down against her.
But mutts are less trouble.
I sat up, frowning. I can't live like you and be a hermit the rest of my life. Patti set her mug on the coffee table, then pointed an unpolished nail at me.
I date when the mood strikes, but you've gone through practically every single man in Sacramento.
Not true. I straightened my spine, thinking of Matt. He was single, lived in Sacramento, and gave me goosebumps with the faintest touch of his hands. Yumsy. Shaking my head, I cleared my thoughts of Matt and twisted to face Patti dead on. You think you have all the answers, don't you? She patted my head.
I can see the obvious.
Batting her hand away, I scoffed. Well, if it's so crystal clear to you, start making my dating decisions.
Huh?
Ha, I'd shocked Patti speechless, which was practically impossible to do. I'm clearly dating all wrong my way, so from now on I'll follow your brilliant advice. Sound good? Patti stood, then studied me as if considering it.
Like you'd listen to me.
I pushed up off the couch and crossed my arms, challenging her. I would. Patti shook her head dismissively.
Yeah, right.
My forehead creased. I said I would listen, and I will. My word is my word. Patti paced the room.
If I were to put in the work for you, I'd need to know you'd follow through.
The nerve of Patti not to trust my word. We'd been friends since junior high, but whatever. I raised my right hand anyway. I do solemnly swear.
Pfft, get real.
She waved a hand in the air, then turned her back on me. One hottie comes along and you'd revert. I paused, trying to picture the guy and wondering if he could be husband material. Oh man, when had my falling in love gear shifted into overdrive? I seriously did need help.
See? She gave me a pointed look. I'm willing to help you find the right man, but I need collateral to guarantee you'll stick to my guidelines. Fine. I followed her into my room and scanned around. Nothing in here but the dresser I'd had growing up, the mismatched nightstand with the paint peeling off, and the Target bookshelf holding stacks of People, Us Weekly, and Cosmopolitan. Would Patti seriously hold my magazine's ransom? Uh-huh. Patti raised a finger in the air and nodded her spiky head. Your car. I gasped, picturing my beloved blue VW Beetle convertible that had less than 5,000 miles on it. I'd babysat through my teens and taught aerobics classes through my 20s to save every penny for that car. Betty the Beetle was the love of my life. She never let me down, took me anywhere I wanted to go with no complaints or manipulation, and never judged me. I couldn't risk losing Betty. Come to think of it, did I really want Patti making my romance decisions? The last guy she'd dated had chanted for an hour every night before they'd gone to bed. Patti guffawed. See, you were never going to listen to me. So much for your word. Oh, great. I had already given my word. I'd be acting like my mom if I backed out. Fine. Stomping out to the living room, I picked up my purse. Where are my keys? Not good enough. Patti grabbed hold of my arm and whipped me around. I want the title. My heart stopped and I bit my bottom lip, hoping Patti couldn't see the fear that was surely visible all over my face. It's in the box on my bookshelf. My entire body went numb as Patti disappeared into my room, then came back a minute later with a small pink slip. Sign it over to me. She slapped it down on the coffee table along with a pen. If you don't follow my advice, and I mean to a T, you can kiss Betty goodbye. With my left hand clutching my chest, I took the pen in my right and poised it over the slip of paper. I paused, knowing Betty, my only true ally, would be safe in Patti's hands. Well, as long as I did what she said. I'd been friends with Patti for 15 years, and I trusted her completely. She may have been rough around the edges, but she had my best interests at heart. Although she wouldn't hesitate to keep Betty if I failed to hold up my end of the deal. Sucking in a deep breath and hoping this was the correct decision, I swirled big loopy letters on the bottom line, signing my beloved Betty over to Patti Hartley. Patti looked way too satisfied as she picked up the pink slip, folded it, and pointed it at me. You've got more balls than I thought, Melanie Porter. Balls? I didn't want balls. Unless they were Brad's, that is. Tall, broad-chested, gorgeous Brad. I wanted him back. Now I wanted Betty back, too. Even more, though, I wanted to find my soulmate. He had to be out there somewhere, and I certainly wasn't having any luck on my own. Tearing my eyes from the piece of paper clutched in Patti's hand, I stared up at her. She yawned, then covered her mouth. It's late. We'll discuss the do's and don'ts of your love life over breakfast. She headed for her room, then stretched and yawned again like a satiated feline. Make that over lunch. I need time to put your rules together. Helpless to do anything else, I went back to my own room, threw myself down on my bed, and hugged a pillow. It smelled like Brad's minty-scented hair gel. My nostrils burned as I remembered my plan to buy him unscented gel for his birthday. But I couldn't buy him new gel now. He was gone. And good riddance. If a man didn't want to stick around, better to find out now rather than later. Besides, that was the last time I'd date the wrong type of guy. By this twist of fate, or I should say this twist of date, I'd follow the star of singledom's advice, which would lead me to Mr. Right. At least, I hoped. Chapter 3. The next day, I maneuvered Betty backward into a tight parking spot outside Sherry's Cafe in downtown Sac. After circling the block twice in search of parking, I was running late for my lunch with Patti, and determined to squeeze Betty into this rinky-dink space no matter what. Turning the steering wheel in the opposite direction, I shoved the car into drive and inched forward, then thrust the gear shift into reverse again.
As I spun the wheel the opposite way and rolled backward, my cell phone went off. Chirp, chirp. While the car was still rolling, I noted the number and jerked Betty to a halt. Throwing the gear shift into park, I groaned. Oh, great, just what I need right now. I tapped the flashing green button on my cell, then mustered up false enthusiasm for my stepmother. "Hi, Janet!" "Melanie, sweetheart, must you shout?" Janet's voice was laced with disapproval. Attempts to please Janet were futile, but I couldn't seem to give up trying. Quitting was my mom's thing, not mine. "Sorry," I lowered my voice, then stepped out of the car. "Is this better?" "Much." Long pause. Janet likes to make people wait. It's her thing. That way, everyone knows how important she is. It is not a good idea to speak during these times. It only serves to aggravate her, which would be made apparent by a longer pause and then some reference to the fact that she'd been speaking, even if she hadn't been. "Listen, sweetheart." Short pause. "Your father and I would like to have you over for dinner tonight. Caitlin has something important she'd like to share with the whole family." The whole family consisted of the four of us. Why my stepmom referred to us so formally was beyond me. And what had the magnificent Caitlin done now? Sneezed? I, on the other hand, could be on my deathbed and would be lucky to get served a TV dinner. But such was life with a can-do-no-wrong stepsister. Fact was, they were family, and Janet made Dad happy. "I teach class at 6:30, but can be at your house by 7:45. "Well, we were hoping to have dinner at 7. Long pause and a sigh. Janet knew my work schedule, but consistently planned dinners during my classes, making me feel guilty for not being able to arrive on time. I put a hand over my eyes, then peered through the window at Sherry's Cafe to see if I could locate Patti while I waited for Janet to speak. "I just can't get to your house any earlier," I finally said. Pause. "All right then, 7:45 it has to be." Knowing Janet expected appreciation for modifying her oh-so-important schedule, I made an attempt to score some points. "Thanks for changing the time for me. I'd really hate to miss Caitlin's good news." Silence. No points, not even half a point. "Okay," I said, annoyance leaking into my voice despite my best intentions. "Well, see you tonight." "We're looking forward to it." Silence, then, "Bye now." "Bye, Janet." I ended the call and sighed. At least it had been relatively painless as far as our conversations went. Probably not as painful as lunch was going to be, with Patti laying down the ground rules of what I could and couldn't do with my own love life. Knowing my hardcore friend, I'd bet my vintage CD collection there'd be more couldn'ts than coulds. I turned to glance at Betty one last time. She sat along the curb, looking all shiny and blue with her black top up. "Don't worry, Betty, I'll never let Patti get her hands on you." Then I reached for the entrance door and took a deep breath. I could only imagine what Patti had in store for me. I found Patti at a table in the center of the crowded restaurant. Apparently, her dating rules didn't require a private corner booth. Hopefully, that was a good sign that they wouldn't be too harsh. "Hey," I sat down, then reached for my water with lemon to calm my nerves. I ordered the usual for us so we could get right down to business, since I have to be back at work in an hour. Patty's smile looked sinister. That or I'd seen too many horror movies. "Okay." My stomach clenched as I unfolded my napkin and placed it in my lap. "Lay it on me." She lifted a piece of thick linen stationery, then cleared her throat. "The Boyfriend Bylaws by Patti Hartley." Sheer terror sliced through me at her unusually formal tone. And, bylaws? What did she think, this was a piece of legislation to be ratified into California law? Rule number 1. She eyed me pointedly. "No giving out your phone number until approved to do so." I raised my hand like a student in one of her 7th grade classes. "Can you clarify that?" "What's to make clear? If I don't say yes, then you don't give it out." She enunciated each word as if she were talking to a particularly slow student. I dropped my hand. Apparently, Patti wasn't an avid supporter of the no question is a bad question philosophy. My throat went dry. Say I'm at the gym and a really nice guy asks for my phone number. What if you're not around? Can I give it to him? She seemed to think on this as the waitress placed my pasta marinara in front of me. After due consideration, Patti shook her head. It's not a good idea to date where you work. My brows shot up. Why not? She stabbed some penne pasta with her fork. If the relationship doesn't pan out, it could create an uncomfortable work environment. How would... My mouth froze and I cringed. Brad. I'd have to see him over and over again at the gym. Ugh. I bit my lip, remembering how he'd showed off to me by benching 175 when I knew from previous spying that he normally benched 150. Brad had no qualms about dating where he worked out. Oh no. What if he gave someone like Erica the eye, benched 180 and asked her on a date? Erica loved PDA. I'd be forced to watch them all lovey-dovey, day in and day out. Swallowing her food, Patti tilted her head. Brad? I nodded. You have a valid point. That's why you hired me. A shame we didn't make this deal a couple weeks ago, eh? Patti turned her attention back to her neatly typed paper. Rule number 2. Must obtain permission to accept any date invitation. That one clear? Good. Moving on. Actually, I raised my hand again and started to sweat. What if I'm at a bar having an amazing conversation with some gorgeous guy and he asks me out to dinner? You have a cell? I clutched the napkin in my lap. You know I do. Then shoot me a text. I'll be available 24/7 for consult. Patti frowned, then waved her index finger. Strike that. Don't call between midnight and 8 a.m. I need my sleep. But how can I? Your problem, not mine, she said with a barely concealed smile. My brows came together, tightening so hard it hurt. Then I promptly relaxed my facial muscles. On top of everything else, I didn't need squint lines. Number 3. Patti glanced up, probably to make sure her student was paying attention. I gave her a thin smile and thought about how good it would feel to freeze Patti's underwear like I'd done in junior high. Patti turned back to the beige, watermarked sheet. No bringing up marriage, kids, or the future. My fake smile faded. After freezing Patti's underwear, I'd short-sheet her bed. How can I forge a lasting relationship without talking about the future? Just concentrate on forging the relationship for now. She flicked her eyes back to her list. 4. No going to first base without authorization. No big. Brad had pretty much skipped first base anyway. All right. Patti studied my calm reaction, then reached for her giant purse, pulled out a pen, and scribbled on the paper. Rule number 4 has been modified. No going to first base or any other base without authorization. What was Patti, a mind reader? How can I date someone if I'm not allowed to figure it out? Your way obviously wasn't getting you anywhere. Patti raised an eyebrow, then turned back to the Boyfriend Bylaws. Numero 5. No scribbling your first name with some guy's last name. Ever. My face heated. How'd you know I'd do that? The pad by the kitchen telephone, genius. Oops. I tilted my head to the right and my ponytail flipped to the opposite shoulder. Is that it for the rules? Please say yes. Last but not least, number 6. This is the rule that I may add new rules as I deem necessary. She handed over the dreaded paper outlining her rules, which were enumerated using various colors and fonts. Here you go. Memorize it, live by it, and happy dating. The Boyfriend Bylaws felt like lead in my hand. Thanks, I think. You're welcome. Patti finished off the last of her pasta. Don't look so grim. This was your idea, remember? My eyes scanned the rules again. That's right. I've got balls. Big ones. Just what I always wanted, I said, wondering if Patti's Boyfriend Bylaws would be my dating salvation or my doom. Patti popped her last bite of garlic bread into her mouth, and I turned away from my barely touched plate to gaze around at the lunchtime crowd. My eyes froze on a familiar face seated at a back corner table. Matt. As if he'd heard me, he glanced up and winked. My face automatically broke into a smile. "He's cute. That's the guy who works at the front desk of Totally Fit, right?" Patti said. "Who's the girl he's with?" "What?" My eyes shot to the girl I hadn't noticed sitting across the table from Matt. She looked oddly familiar. She had long, sandy brown hair and glanced over at me with a curious stare. I turned back to Patti. "I have no idea who she is. He must be dating someone new." My stomach knotted. How could he have acted so interested in me the day before, then go out with another girl the next? A surge of jealousy flooded through me as she leaned forward, said something, then exchanged a smile with him. Without thinking, I blurted, "They seem awfully chummy for a first date." "Does that bother you?" "Of course not." I fixed an intent look on Patti. "Matt can date the entire Sacramento Kings cheerleading team for all I care." "Uh-huh." Patti appeared bemused as she handed her credit card to the waitress. Whatever. Finding Matt with another girl was exactly why I'd said no to dating him in the first place. Reminding myself of that, however, did not make me feel 1 ounce better. Chapter 4. Erica and I arrived at the janitor's closet at 3:30, so I filled her in on my lunch with Patti, along with the ins and outs of the Boyfriend Bylaws. Erica knew Patti, so she wasn't surprised, but she couldn't believe I'd risk Betty. Neither could I, really. Just went to show how desperate I was to stop dating the wrong guys. At promptly 3:55 p.m., Steve opened the janitor's closet door and joined us in the dark, dusty room. "Anything yet?" "Still waiting," Erica said, using a hushed tone. "Matt won't desert the desk until they arrive, and Ginger's going to cover the front desk for him. She got off work early today to get her hair done." We'd met Ginger a few weeks ago when she'd started coming to the gym with Caitlin. Shockingly, my lovely stepsister's life had fallen from perfection for about a minute when she'd gotten laid off at her last job. Living the charmed life that she did, though, Caitlin had been offered an even better job within a week. Now she had a higher salary and a new best friend, Ginger, to boot. I'd even overheard Caitlin whispering to Ginger about some guy she was seeing. Not that Caitlin had bothered to say anything to me, her actual relative. I pursed my lips. What did Ginger do to her hair? "Nothing drastic," Erica whispered. "Trim and highlights, although she's considering a permanent shine to—" Steve made snoring noises. "I beg of you, can we change the subject before my masculinity dries up?" Suddenly, I felt a hard poke in my thigh. Ouch, that hurts. "Sorry," Steve chuckled. "My elbow thought you were a shelf." "Shh," Erica's voice was low but stern. "You guys want us to get caught?" I stuck my ear against the wall and listened to the silence in Rudy's office. "I don't hear a thing. They still aren't in there yet." I could hear the duh in Erica's tone. "If they were, then Matt would have joined us already, remember?" The thought of being in the dark with Matt made my heart rate kick up a notch. Then I remembered his lunch date and wanted to kick myself for having that kind of reaction. Suddenly, something sharp dug into my hip. "Sorry," Steve said. "My bad. Again." "You're a trainer, Steve." I straightened from my crouch position and shook off all thoughts of Matt and his new girl. "Shouldn't you at least be able to hold yourself up without help?" "Shh," Erica scolded again. "You guys will never be invited back if you don't shut up." "Don't tell me to shut up." I glared down at Erica in the darkness. Not like she could see me, but I got some satisfaction out of narrowing my eyes in her general direction. Normally I could deal with Erica's bossy attitude, but the stress of the last 24 hours had been enough. Erica grabbed for my shoulder and put an arm around me. "You don't want us to get caught, do you? How yumsy would that be?" "Yumsy was yesterday's word," Steve informed her with a sigh. "Keep up with the times, Connor." "Well, excuse me," Erica sounded indignant. "But in case you don't remember, I was late this morning, thanks to Mario, and I didn't hear the new word." "So that's where you were." Steve's tone sounded like he'd cracked an unsolved mystery. Congrats to Mario, I cheered as quietly as I could. At least someone's love life was doing well, since my own had taken a plunging nosedive and all future prospects were now subject to the boyfriend bylaws. What's he like? Any chance he's the one? Absolutely not, Erica snorted. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give him a 7. That's a thanks for playing, but it won't get him invited back.
That's harsh, Connor. Steve paused. Do all girls rate guys? Wait, never mind. I don't want to know.
I sighed. Brad would have been a 9. Get rid of the yellow car, minty hair gel, and his opposition to commitment, then he'd upgrade to a 10, hands down. The closet door creaked open then, and a dark figure with a fabulous physique stood in the hallway, holding the handle with one hand. Oh no. We'd been caught by a hot bod. I knew I should have waited and gotten the information secondhand.
Why is it dark in here?
The lights flashed on, illuminating Matt, who slammed the door shut behind him.
Don't slam the door!
Erica waved her arms, too little, too late.
Turn the switch back off!
I somehow managed to shriek quietly. Heat crept up my neck. Had I really thought of Matt as a hot bod? It must be nerves. This spying stuff was so not up my alley.
The lights can stay on.
Matt sauntered toward us.
It's not like they have X-ray vision and can see through the wall.
Good point. Steve squatted on one knee and pressed his ear against the wall.
Rudy's not Clark O'Kento.
Matt bobbled his head and raised his brows.
Nice Italiano accento, Steve-o.
Hush it! Erica stomped her foot repeatedly. Next time, you're all banned from the closet. Apparently, I'm the only one who knows how to be stealthy.
The suit's in there yet?
Steve spoke in a low voice, then winked at Erica.
See how yumsy I can be?
She glared at him. You said that was yesterday's word, not that anyone has bothered to clue me in on today's word. Matt jerked his thumb toward Rudy's office.
To answer your question, Steve, yes. They're starting the meeting now.
Then he turned to Erica.
And to respond to your concern, Connor, today's word is life sucks.
Erica's chin dropped to her chest and she crinkled her nose. That's 2 words.
Not if you say it quickly.
Steve raised a finger.
Life sucks. Life sucks. See?
Erica shook her head. It's still 2 words. After the night I just had, it's 1 word. My mind flew back to last night's events, then jumped to my lunch with Patti, which inevitably left me wondering about Matt's date. Erica sighed. I can't believe you let that hottie get away, Mel. Matt rubbed my shoulders.
He wasn't nearly good enough for our girl.
I groaned, mostly for liking the feel of Matt's hands on me. Surprisingly, I'd hardly thought about Brad at all today. I don't want to talk about it because life sucks. Fine, it's 1 word. Erica rolled her eyes in that whatever way of hers. Anyway, life sucks when you're loud, so let's keep it down, people. Fine. I pressed my ear against the unpainted sheetrock wall. I had the strong urge to ask Matt about his date, but my stomach felt nauseated just thinking about her. What were the suits like, Matt? Did you get a look at them? Did they look eager to fire any of us? Matt squeezed between Erica and me, then put an ear to the wall too. His shoulder brushed against mine, sending a rush of tingles up my neck. I breathed in his spicy cologne, which made me want to buy a bottle of whatever it was and drench my pillow with it.
Introductions weren't made, Matt said, clearly unaware of the physical effect he was having on me. But I gather one guy is Rudy's brother. His last name was Zambini, and he could have passed for his twin.
I knew Matt had said something, but it was impossible to concentrate with that one nagging thought hanging on my mind. I had to get it over with. How was your lunch?
Great.
His head rested against the wall and his gaze met mine.
I wanted to introduce you, but you guys left so fast I didn't get a chance.
Our faces were inches apart and I felt woozy being this close to him. First the girl from the dance club, now the girl from Sherry's Cafe. He chuckled, his eyes crinkling in an adorable way.
You make it sound like I have a stream of women in my life.
Don't you? I bit my lip, waiting for the answer, but not sure I wanted to hear it. Then I shrugged, trying to cover how interested I was. Not that it's my business. His expression grew serious.
I'm single, but I certainly don't have a stream of girls.
Oh. My stomach warmed, and I felt the heat rush to my cheeks. Our shoulders were still touching, but I couldn't bring myself to move away. Then I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. Erica knelt down on the floor next to an air vent and held a finger to her lips. They've started the meeting. Want me to relay what they're saying? Is it wise to speak that close to the vent? I stared down at Erica, who was sprawled across the floor with her ear smashed against the grate. I mean, if you can hear them, can't they hear you too? Erica frowned, probably mentally shushing herself. This is another reason I work alone. Making several twisty motions with her hand, she zipped her lips, then waved us down toward the vent that was 2 inches above the linoleum floor. In the name of duty, I dropped onto my stomach between Matt and Steve and tried not to sneeze from the dust that coated the vent. Matt put his arm around me.
Cozy enough for you?
I definitely felt cozy against him, but no way would I let him know. Shouldn't we focus on our jobs? Matt winked at me.
Not my first choice, but whatever you say. Rodolfo, dai!
A man's voice with a thick Italian accent echoed from the vent, and I pictured him gesturing with his hands as he talked, the way Rudy did.
The business, it is going under. You want that we help you or no?
My breath caught in my throat. Going under? We'd suspected it, yes, but having it confirmed gave me a horrible sinking feeling. Poor Rudy. And poor me, too. Where would I find another job in this economy?
You know I try to do business with you.
Rudy's accented words clipped out.
But the amount you offer is niente, Pietro. You are my cousin, my blood. You offer me fair price, I sell to you now.
Matt leaned away from the vent and whispered,
Told you that Zambini guy was family.
You said brother, I reminded him.
Never claimed to be clairvoyant.
Matt held his palms in the air.
Don't start with that my word is my word thing again. I admit freely that I was incorrect, okay?
Wow! Erica clasped her hand around Matt's elbow. A guy admitting he's wrong? That's positively yumsy.
Can we get back to the issue at hand, people?
Steve tapped his index finger on the wall. We all turned back to the choppy conversation.
Guarda, cugino mio. Niccolò and I are here to help you, no?
The thickly accented Pietro took on a companionable tone, and I pictured him putting an arm around poor Rudy.
We keep same price, ma we keep you on to manage, yes? You will receive a fine salary.
Rudy sighed.
Va bene. Totally fit, it is yours. Bravo, my cousin. You never regret this.
It sounded like they were slapping each other on the backs.
Allora, we make some changes. Niccolò? Si.
There was a rustling of papers.
Our goal is to increase revenue and cut costs. I've gone through the books and found some places to trim spending.
This Niccolò guy had a deep, sexy voice and must have grown up in the States because he spoke without a trace of accent.
First, your trainer, Steve Burns.
I turned toward Steve, whose eyes widened.
The guy charges $80 an hour for his services and you only keep 25%? No wonder your gym isn't making profit. Steve is an excellent trainer.
Rudy's voice was shaky.
He brings a lot of business and the clients, they like him. We're going to raise his services to $90 an hour and he can keep half of that. If he doesn't like it, we'll get a replacement.
Steve's face paled. I put my hand on his forearm, knowing I barely scraped by on my totally fit paycheck. What if they decided to cut my salary too?
Si.
Pietro was speaking again.
Like the one at the front desk. This guy Steve want to walk, we replace with the front desk guy. He in good shape.
Reflexively, I turned toward Matt, remembering his muscular silhouette at the door. Staring at his biceps, I blinked.
Had he been working out more often? Matt nudged me. You can rest easy. I'm not interested in Steve's job. Actually, I won't be working here much longer anyway. I finished my thesis. My stomach sank. I couldn't imagine Totally Fit without Matt. It just wouldn't be the same. Out of nowhere, tears sprang into my eyes. Don't be sad. He gave me a squeeze. I'll still be working out here. What was wrong with me? Matt would have the PhD he'd worked so hard for. I should have been happy for him. Congratulations, Matt. That's great. The sound of breaking glass broke my thoughts, and my eyes darted to the dusty air vent. Pietro, look what you do to my desk, Rudy barked.
Relax, Rudy.
No accent.
It's not like he knocked his drink over on purpose.
There is glass all over my office. It is sticky everywhere. Rudy sounded like he might snap. Must be the tension of losing the gym, because Rudy normally kept his cool. Pietro, just clean this up. Go next door, bring back the mop and bucket, and fix this mess.
I'll get it.
No accent, so it had to be Nicolo who offered to grab the mop. The mop! Blaring alarms went off in my head. The mop was in here. Rudy's office door squeaked open, and I rolled toward the others momentarily, then scrambled to my feet. Seconds later, the door burst open, and in walked the sexiest guy I had ever seen. Dark hair, dark eyes, and the body of a Greek statue. Or an Italian statue, as the case may be. Either way, in his Armani suit and one gold chain, I could see the man was built. He stared at the four of us critically. We all stood frozen. Then the Italian god made eye contact with me. My knees weakened, and I pressed a hand to the wall for balance, unable to speak. If this guy was surprised to see us, he hid it well. His mouth twitched, and a dimple formed in his left cheek.
Hello.
Words failed me, but I had to do something, so I scampered across the small room, removed the mop from the hook on the opposite wall, and handed it to him.
Thanks.
His dimple deepened, and his brown eyes pierced mine as he grasped the mop handle.
I'm Nick.
Nick. Out of habit, I glanced down at his ring finger. Bare. He was single. My heart drummed a mile a minute, and I breathed in deeply to calmly introduce myself. I'm, achoo! Both hands flew to my nose, and I squeezed my eyes shut. What just happened? The dust from the vent. This was Rudy's fault for canceling the janitor. I sniffed several times, rubbed my nose, then tilted my head up and opened my eyes. Nick's gaze seemed transfixed on mine as he reached into his breast pocket, removed a white handkerchief, and held it out for me. My heart melted. What a gentleman. I accepted the handkerchief and dabbed my nose. Suddenly, Erica appeared at my side, a hair in front of me, actually, holding her hand out to Nick. I'm Erica Connor, and may I just say how thrilling it is to have such an authoritative man in charge around here? It annoyed me that Erica had stepped up when I'd been here first. Still, it didn't grate on my nerves the way it did when she flirted with Matt. Weird. But my competitive side wouldn't let her get away with upstaging me. I rolled my shoulder so it was slightly in front of Erica's and broke their handshake. It may have been childish, but it sure felt good. She narrowed her eyes at me, then turned back to Nick. I'm not scheduled to work for another hour, so I'd be happy to assist if you need help with anything. Nick turned back to me, gave a small smile, then held up the mop.
Actually, I'd better get this to Rudy before he has a coronary. Nice to meet you all.
The pleasure was mine, Erica gushed. Welcome to Totally Fit.
Thanks,
he said, then stepped out of the closet, leaving the door open. Erica spun toward the three of us and clapped her hands. Things around here are about to get interesting. Yes, they are, I said, watching her bounce out of the closet. She'd totally made a move on Nick when he'd clearly noticed me first. Wasn't there a girlfriend code on first dibs? Not that I wanted dibs, necessarily. Let's face it, I couldn't make a move in any dating direction without authorization from Patti. But it just wasn't right how Erica had jumped in front of me. "Back to work, people." Steve jerked his thumbs toward himself. "Especially me." I stood motionless, watching Steve lift his head high as he strode out. Matt came up beside me. "You okay?" I turned toward him. "I've been better." "That's right," he said. "I'm sorry your date didn't go the way you wanted." "It's okay." I shrugged and meant it. Surprisingly, I didn't miss Brad at all. Guess I really hadn't been that into him. Wow. I pictured the figurative bright yellow light bulb flashing above my head. I'd been so excited to find love that I'd imagined I had it. What a confusing revelation. He slipped his arm around my waist. "Let me know if there's anything I can do." My body vibrated from his touch. "Thanks, Matt. You're a good friend." As I strolled out toward the locker room, part of me wanted to race back to Matt, agree to go out with him, and have a good time. Forget about finding love, commitment, and that whole elusive mess. But I refused to give up on true love. That's what my mom had done. Nick seemed nice. Maybe he was the type to make a relationship last. That is, if Erica didn't snatch him up first. Remembering the Boyfriend Bylaws, I groaned. I couldn't make a move toward Nick without checking with Patti first. Chapter 5. 20 minutes before my aerobics class started, I stretched out in the aerobics room with Patti, who attended my classes at least once a week. Sitting with my legs out in front of me, I folded my chest onto my knees and spilled the news. "I've met a guy." Patti stared at me blankly as if waiting for the punchline. After a few seconds, she pointed a finger. "You better not have given whoever this is your phone number. That would be a direct violation of the Boyfriend Bylaws, and Betty would be mine." "No, I didn't give him my number." I bent one knee, brought my heel to the inside of my thigh, and reached for the opposite foot. Although he might already have it. Patti twisted her body toward the left until something cracked. "You sneak. Did you have someone else hand your number to him? I hereby invoke rule number 6 by adding rule number 7. No third-party interference." Darn, that had been a great loophole I'd missed. "Relax, Patti. He has my number because he just bought Totally Fit from Rudy. My number must be in my employee file. Well, assuming Rudy was that organized." I released my foot and turned to Patti. "His name is Nick. He seems like a total gentleman, not to mention he's insanely gorgeous. Can I get permission to go on a date with him before he asks me out?" Patti scoffed, straightened her leg, then reached for her right foot. "No way. Why did she have to be so difficult? I was playing by her rules. What's the point of waiting until he asks me out and then calling you? That's just stupid." "Why should you wait? Let's see. Brad, Paul, Mike, Marcus. And don't think I didn't see the wink your coworker Matt gave you at lunch today." "Matt? Sweet, intelligent, and unfortunately enjoys playing the field Matt?" Remembering the way he'd smiled intimately at his lunch date made me feel ill. "I'm not interested in Matt." "Yeah, I could tell by the wicked daggers you were shooting his lunch date." "Well, she didn't seem right for him." I raised my chin defensively. She'd been too... something. I couldn't put my finger on it. Time to change the subject. "Nick is different." "Oh, I'm sure." Patti glanced back and waved at a couple of women from her school who'd entered the aerobics studio. "I'll even bet he's the one." The way she said it irritated me. At least I'm willing to take a risk and try to find the right man, unlike you. "Well, put it out there all you want." Patti stood, put her hands on her hips, and leaned backward in a final stretch. "As long as you follow the bylaws." "Oh, I will." I gave her a meaningful look. "Don't even think you're going to win Betty." She laughed, then her face grew serious. "Your mom called again. Talked to me forever, trying to find out why you won't call her back." My brows came together. "What did you say?" She blew out a breath. I was vague, but you can't avoid her forever. "Try me," I said, then flipped on the music and bounced from foot to foot, warming up.
With the beat blaring out, I listened to the music, waiting for the upbeat energy to wash over me. Instead, all I could focus on was Patti's rules, which were getting increasingly irritating. How could she say no to a date with Nick? These bylaws bugged. They'd better lead me to my happily ever after. For some reason, thinking of forever made me picture Matt. Deep down, I wished he'd change his ways and want a serious relationship. But I'd found out the hard way that you can't control another person. Maybe I should return my mom's call and have it out with her, again. The mere thought exhausted me. "Good evening, everyone." I took position in front of the class. The music rang out and I began flexing my biceps as I tapped my foot. "Are we all ready for a fantastic workout?" As I started to fall into my usual groove, I spotted Nick, Matt, and Steve walk by the open doorway. They were heading toward Rudy's office, and I wondered why they'd be meeting this late at night. Nick glanced back over his shoulder at me, so I tightened my abs and flashed him a smile. The corners of his mouth turned upward. Nice. Good sign he was interested. Come tomorrow, I'd find out if he was a player or looking for a relationship. "All right, everyone." I lifted my head, smiled, and swung my hips to the beat. "Time to pump up the energy." Come tomorrow, I'd work my energy on Nick. After class, I showered in the locker room, then threw on a clean shirt, jeans, and a hooded sweatshirt for dinner at my dad and Janet's house in Land Park. Swinging my bag over my shoulder, I strode out of Totally Fit while waving goodbye to our evening desk clerk, Carrie. She mostly kept to herself and never joined us if we had an after-hours event, but seemed nice enough, just quiet. Pushing out the exit, I just stepped onto the sidewalk when a hand grabbed a firm hold of my arm. Gasping, I swung around to find Matt coming up behind me. "Slow down, beautiful." He let the door shut behind him, then moved toward the brick wall of our building to let a man in a suit pass by. "What's your hurry?" I brushed my bangs out of my eyes. "Late for dinner with my parents." The corner of his mouth curved upward. "Never thought you'd rush for that." "Guess there's a first time for everything." Tilting my head, I peered up at him. Standing alone in the dark with Matt caused an ache inside me. Why had he asked me out the other day? It had just served as a cruel reminder of what I could never have with him. "What are you doing here so late?" The green and blue lights from the Totally Fit sign cast shadows across his subdued face. "Meeting with Nick, he cut my hours." "Seriously?" Matt's schedule had been set in stone for over a year now. How can he do that? He shrugged. "Carrie and I overlap during the day, and her pay rate is lower. Makes sense financially." I lifted my lashes. "Still, it's all right, Mel." His eyes were soft as he stared down at me. "My thesis advisor recommended me for a part-time teaching position at the college, and I got the job. I gave Nick my notice, which I was going to do anyhow." Immediately, tears burned behind my eyes. Sucking in my bottom lip, I turned away. "Hey." He moved around me, then lifted my chin gently. "We'll still see each other at the gym, or we'll make plans with the gang." My throat tightened, and I couldn't meet his gaze. "It won't be the same." He ran his thumb along my jawline. "You could always agree to go out with me, then we'd see each other all the time." "Don't start." Rolling my eyes, I wondered once again why Matt didn't want to settle down. The more I thought about it, the more it drove me crazy. I needed to get him out of my head and me off this sidewalk. I started to step away. "I have to go." "Hold on a sec." He gave another little tug on my arm. "There's no Brad anymore. Thank goodness you're rid of that clown. And you know there's something between us. Admit it." Goosebumps danced along my neck, and my mouth opened, but words didn't come out. Because I did have feelings for Matt, I just never admitted it to anyone. Not even to myself, really. I can't believe you just said that." His eyes went wide. "Why not?" "There's no point discussing this. Plus, Janet was going to disown me for being so late to dinner. Although, why was I always trying to please her? It would never happen. Just like it would never happen that Matt would settle down, which irked me. It's just, well, never mind. It's none of my business." His jaw pulsed as if he was thinking.
What?
The way you date around, I blurted, ripping away the protective wall around my heart and leaving it exposed. He took a step closer to me.
The way I what?
I felt incredibly vulnerable, like I had when I'd been 15 and my world had been torn apart. Nothing, forget it. His brows came together.
What am I missing here?
A relationship with me. I couldn't say that, though. You couldn't make someone want to be with only you. Just thinking about what my dad had gone through brought tears to my eyes. His expression softened, and he lifted my hands.
Mel, what's wrong? What are you afraid of?
His hands were especially warm in the cool evening air, and chills radiated up my arms from his touch. No, I would not fall for him. I couldn't. It wouldn't last, and I'd be the one left hurting in the end. I jerked my hands out of his, suddenly angry. You know, it's hard not to take you seriously when you act like this. His forehead creased.
You think this is an act?
Last week, it's the brunette at the dance club. At lunch today, it's the girl in the sexy business suit. And tonight, who knows with you? You're just a... My jaw tightened, and all the terror of feeling vulnerable burst from inside me. You're such a player. He flinched.
You think that of me?
His gaze had always been warm in the past, but the look he gave me left me chilled to my core. My eyes burned, and I immediately wanted to take my words back. He stared at me, his eyes cold and empty.
Eileen, who you met at the Oasis, is someone I dated twice. I'm single, and there's no law against that. The girl at lunch today was my cousin. She's up from LA touring the campus at UC Davis, and I'd planned to introduce you, but you and your friend busted out of the restaurant so fast I didn't get the chance.
Feeling terrible, I bit my lip. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that.
Why not, if it's the truth?
He laughed bitterly.
What have I ever done to give you that impression of me? Do you think studying for my PhD puts me back in college dating mode or something?
No, I
just think that little of me, of my integrity.
With his jaw tight, he slid his hands in his pockets and took a step backward.
Have a nice dinner with your parents.
Matt. My lower lip trembled as he hurried down the sidewalk, then disappeared around the corner. I leaned against the brick wall for support. He was gone. My eyes were hot, my throat went tight, and it felt like my heart had been ripped out. I'd been wrong about him being a player. My mistake had cost me a relationship with Matt. If he couldn't forgive me, maybe even his friendship. A mistake I'd made with Erica's help. As I marched to Betty, I whipped out my cell phone. Erica had some serious explaining to do. At 8:30, I screeched Betty into my parents' driveway and slammed her into park in front of their 3-car garage. I hit redial, and it went straight to Erica's voicemail. Me again. I tried not to sound as angry as I felt. Call me when you get this. I don't care how late it is. I'd thought about canceling on dinner, but with Caitlin's big news, my parents would freak if I didn't show. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, wiped under my eyes, and evaluated that I looked as bad as I felt. Taking a deep breath, I slid out of the car, hoping to get dinner over with as fast as humanly possible. I didn't know if I could put on a happy face, even though it was expected of me. When I turned the knob on my parents' front door, nothing happened. Locked. The muscles in my arms tightened, and it was all I could do not to scream. Why did they lock the front door when they knew I was coming over? I rang the bell, vowing that the minute after Caitlin spilled her news, I'd make excuses and beeline out of there. Checking my cell, no return call or text from Erica, I rang again, then finally heard the deadbolt unlock. It took every ounce of strength I had to paste on a smile. Then the door opened and my mouth flattened. Standing in my parents' foyer was Paul DeWitt, the investment counselor who'd broken my heart a month and a half ago. As Erica had mentioned, I'd thought he was the one. Paul? My voice squeaked, and I was unable to conceal my shock. I'd never introduced him to Dad and Janet, so how did he know where they lived? He gave me a nervous look.
What are you doing here?" My ex-boyfriend was standing in my parents' foyer, and he was asking me what I was doing here. Had my parents sold the house and forgotten to tell me? This was absolutely, unconditionally the night from Hades. I mentally snorted. Hades, that's great. My memory would pick this moment to remember all things Greek. Where had my brain been during the whole Play-Doh versus Plato fiasco? Wasn't that just the icing on the Acropolis? "Hi!" Caitlin appeared in the doorway and laced her arm through Paul's. Gasping wasn't a great response, but I swear a 2-letter word had never been harder to say. Her brows quirked a moment, then she smiled, tossing her silky red locks over her shoulder. "Glad you finally made it. I see you've met my darling boyfriend." Paul's face drained of color at the same time my stomach heaved. "This is your sister?" Paul gasped. Caitlin nodded enthusiastically, then pulled me into a tight hug. "He didn't tell you the news, did he?" No. I didn't dare ask what news and didn't want to know what news. I just turned around, ready to hightail it out of there. "Oh, no you don't." Caitlin grabbed my arm and pulled me through the doorway. "I don't care what you forgot in your car. We've been waiting for you forever and can't wait another minute. I want to tell Mommy, Daddy, and you at the same time. Come on." After tripping inside, in addition to my voice, my feet weren't working so well. Caitlin released my arm, shut the door, and clip-clopped on her heels toward the dining room with Paul in tow. Chapter 6. The next morning, I stood outside totally fit with my hand on the door, unable to pull it open, even though it was 5:30 a.m. and freaking cold outside. My mind still reeled from last night's events. Caitlin was engaged to my ex. Caitlin asked me to be her maid of honor. I swear she emphasized the word maid to rub it in that I was single. Didn't she have a best friend or a hairdresser or anyone else to ask? Someone who hadn't seen the groom-to-be naked? Even worse, I'd left 8 messages for Erica, who still hadn't called me back. With all this pent-up tension, now I had to go in and face Matt. I'd never dreaded going to work in all my years at Totally Fit. But today it took massive effort to pull the front door open and walk into the warmth of the lobby. Matt sat in his usual spot, reading a thick book with a faded gray hardcover. My stomach lurched as if part of me hadn't expected him to be here. As if one argument with Melanie Porter would have been enough to get him to call in sick after a year of never missing a day. Oh, great. I was stalling. Striding to the front desk, I dropped my bag on the floor. "Good morning." "Morning." His voice was neutral, neither friendly nor angry, but he didn't glance up from his book. Bad sign. I swallowed the lump in my throat, lifted my bag, then walked past the front counter. "What's the word?" he asked. I stopped, tears blurring my vision. "The word?" Matt snapped his book shut and no longer appeared disinterested. He looked hurt. "After a year giving me the word, you think you're going to pass by without choosing it?" I bit my lip. "You're speaking to me." "Apparently so." His tone was lighter this time. Not quite friendly, but it seemed like he was trying. My eyes burned and I blinked rapidly to keep the tears at bay. "Matt, "The word, Mel." He seemed uncomfortable and shook his head. "It's just a word." I took a deep breath, knowing what I needed to say. "Matt, I'm sorry." He stared blankly. "That's 3 words. We only need 1. I couldn't help but smile. "Does that mean I'm forgiven?" "Forgiven?" Matt leaned forward, tapping his finger on the countertop. "That's 1 word, I suppose, but not very imaginative." "Thank you, Matt. You don't know how much I leaned on the counter and my hand accidentally brushed his. He froze for a moment, then pulled away from me. "Those are a lot of words. I'm beginning to think you've forgotten how the game goes." It stung that he cringed at my touch, but I deserved it. At least he was talking to me. "You picked the word." He shook his head. No, that's not how it works. I shrugged. Seems like a lot of things are changing around here. He avoided my gaze and didn't say anything. I didn't say anything either. The long, drawn-out silence was starting to get to me when the front door burst open. "Morning, all." Steve strode in, wearing his red polo and white shorts. "What's the word?" Matt and I exchanged a look, neither of us answering. My mouth twisted to the side. How had I never noticed how stubborn he could be? Steve leaned against the counter next to me. "The word, people. Clue me in already." Remembering what Matt had said when I told him to choose the word, I turned to Steve. "The word of the day is Really?" Steve scratched his head. "Is that a word? Seems like more of a sound to me." I gestured toward Matt with my thumb, just like he usually did with me. He picked it. Blame him, not me. The corners of Matt's mouth twitched, but he didn't have a comeback. My eyes widened in faux shock. Finally, I've stumped the unstumpable. I smiled. I think I like that. Steve looked from Matt to me. "Why do I always feel like I'm missing something when it comes to you two?" Matt said. "Don't know, Steve. Were you often left out as a child?" "Actually," he began. Ding, ding. The front door opened behind me, but I couldn't bring myself to turn around. If it was Erica, I might lose it, and I didn't want to explode in front of Matt and Steve. "Good morning," a familiar voice said. "Is the gym open yet?" Definitely not Erica. It was Brad. Every nerve in my body went on red alert. He came up behind me, but I didn't turn around. Instead of greeting Brad the way a front clerk was supposed to, Matt just stared at him, his forehead crinkling. Truth be told, he seemed kinda angry. "It's a few minutes early, but sure." Steve picked up his gym bag, then strode around the desk. "Come on back." "All right." Brad followed Steve's trail, but turned over his shoulder. "Morning, Mel." "Morning," I said, but didn't bother to look at him. I raised my brows at Matt, hoping to get that hard look off his normally sweet face. "That guy bugs," he said before picking up the book he'd been reading earlier. A warm feeling flushed through me at Matt's protectiveness. Ding, ding. The front door pushed open again, and Erica sashayed in. "Hi, guys. How's it going?" "It's going, Connor," Matt said, the muscles of his forehead still tight. "All righty, Rue." She tapped her fingers on the countertop, turned to me, and bopped the heel of her hand against her forehead. "Sorry I didn't get a chance to call you back last night. Mario ended up coming over and, well, you know." I did know. I was beginning to finally know Erica pretty well, actually. "Can I speak to you in private, please?" Matt raised his brows as I stormed past him and pushed through the double doors that led to the back. I'd avoided my mom since she'd left me. I'd avoided seeing my relationships for what they really were. Well, I was done avoiding anything. I only had 10 minutes before my Zumba class, and it's not like I had my own office. So I led Erica into the janitor's closet and closed the door behind us. "What's up, girl?" Erica may have been flighty, but she wasn't stupid. "You're mad that I didn't call you back." "You think?" I threw her an irritated look. "When I leave 8 messages telling you to call as soon as you get this, that's a good indication it's pretty important." "So was my date with Mario." She wiggled her brows, but when I didn't smile back, she let out a big sigh. "All right, what gives?" "Matt Thompson is not a player." My voice cracked, so I started pacing. "You told me he was." To Erica's credit, she didn't deny it. "You sound mad." "Of course I'm mad." I strode across the tiny closet in 3 steps, then stopped and threw my hands wide. "You lied to me." She held her palm up. "First of all, I didn't lie." My mouth dropped open, and I gave her a skeptical look. "Okay, I lied." Her tone softened. "But it's not like it was about something important between you and me. Like if I'd said, you don't look fat in that outfit, but you did, that would be a real lie. Saying some guy I dated is a player."
She waved a hand in the air as if she were trying to find the right words. I pointed a finger at her. But he's not. Well, of course he's not. He's Matt. The guy's the definition of perfect. She crossed her arms over her chest. What did you want me to say? Her pitch rose an octave. That after 2 dates he still wouldn't make a move? That he wasn't interested in me that way and that he said he just wanted to be friends? I stared at her blankly, shocked to finally hear what really had gone down between them. Yes, if that's what actually happened. But it's pathetic. She said it as if I were stupid. I'd waxed poetic about how great he was, but he didn't return my feelings. It was humiliating. Did you expect me to write it on a billboard? I gasped. How can you stand there and try to justify lying to me? She clasped her hands together in prayer position. I can't believe you're bent out of shape over something that had nothing to do with you. The door to the janitor's closet thrust open and hot Nick walked in, only his hotness seemed to have dimmed slightly. All I could think about was Matt and the way he'd avoided my touch earlier.
Ladies, every word you're saying is coming through to my office.
Nick glanced around, his eyes coming to rest on the dusty vent that had apparently been relaying our conversation. He checked his watch.
It's 5 after 6.
He looked at Erica.
Don't you have a yoga class to lead?
We were just finishing up. Erica gave me a dirty look as if this had been my fault, and then she scampered out of the closet.
And you, Melanie?
Nick's voice sounded firm, strong, and in charge. If I hadn't been so upset, I'm sure I would have found it appealing. Sorry, I'm going. My 6 o'clock class was usually packed with people getting their cardio in before work. I'd never been more than a minute late to class. How embarrassing. I moved past Nick without glancing up.
Everything okay?
He asked, coming out behind me. Perfect. Perfectly awful, I meant.
Good.
He lifted a hand to adjust his tie.
Are you, by any chance, available for lunch today?
Lunch? I blinked, stunned. I hadn't even flirted with him yet. I didn't feel the spark of excitement I'd expected to feel if he asked me out, but a lunch date might be just the thing to cheer me up. Then I remembered Betty and bit my lip. Boyfriend Bylaw number 2. I had to get permission to accept a date. But I didn't have time to call Patti since I was already late for class. Not to mention Nick was giving me a weird look. Nick seemed great, but Betty was my shiny blue security blanket. I'd already lost Matt. I couldn't lose her, too.
Melanie?
His voice was tinged with confusion.
I know it's last minute, if you're not free.
Right, no, lunch. My stress level rose, and I could actually hear a clock ticking. Why hadn't Patti given me pre-permission like I'd asked? I felt lame for not answering, but how could I explain that I needed my roomie's approval to date him? Then something occurred to me. Patti managed my love life, not my work life. Maybe Nick was asking me out for business reasons. Who was I to assume it was personal? I smiled, proud to have found a new loophole. I accept. A working lunch sounds great. He smirked, causing his adorable dimple to pop out.
Noon?
A nooner's perfect. My eyes widened at my unfortunate choice of words and my face flamed. Sure, noon works.
Okay.
He nodded, then pivoted, striding toward his new office. I hauled booty in the opposite direction, unzipping my pink hooded sweatshirt as I ran and feeling guilty as if I were cheating on Matt. Kristen and I were stretching and chatting after class like we normally did. Her work was going well, her boyfriend Ethan sounded amazing, and I waited for her to ask the inevitable question. Lying back on the mat, she stared up at me. How are things going with Brad? They're not. I flopped down onto my stomach. He totally ditched out when I brought up the C word. She sat up, widening her eyes. Coffee? I laughed. Yes, exactly. Turns out Brad prefers to have his cappuccinos in various cafes as opposed to the same place each time.
Some men like variety when it comes to espresso drinks. She rolled over onto her belly, then propped her chin on her fist. You don't seem upset. Drinking my frappuccinos without him hasn't fazed me. Isn't that interesting? She nodded. Figuring out coffee preferences can be complicated sometimes. For example, some women avoid the espresso drink they really crave in fear of the flavor disappointing them. I tilted my head, my ponytail flopping over my shoulder. Okay, you lost me. She laced her fingers under her chin. You wouldn't ask your friend if he'd commit, but you had no problem asking Brad. I find that interesting, don't you? One thing I liked about Kristen, she always nailed things dead on and wasn't afraid to say it. Matt told me he doesn't play around. Really? Kristen's tone didn't sound surprised at all. And you're not dating Brad anymore. So? I shook my head. I'm going to lunch today with a new guy, Nick. Her brows furrowed. Why? He seems nice. I popped to my feet. I'd better head to the locker room and get cleaned up. Kristen stood. You're aware that I can talk while walking. I smiled, knowing it was futile to try to divert a trained counselor. Matt and I had a falling out. I hurt him, and he's not interested in me anymore. She tapped her finger to her lip, having no clue she'd just reminded me of Matt's word of the day. Did he tell you he wasn't interested? Remembering the way he'd pulled away when my hand had brushed his, I sighed. Trust me, he's not. I'm lucky he's still talking to me. Kristen paused outside the door. I'm gonna walk a few minutes on the treadmill before I hit the shower, but we should have lunch sometime. I'd love that, I said, and meant it. Enjoy the rest of your week. You too. She started to walk away, then stopped, lowering her voice. Just because you hurt Matt doesn't mean he's done with you. Right. I nodded, then trudged toward the locker room, knowing Kristen had meant well. Even so, her comment had stung. My chest tightened all the way to the shower, so much so that as soon as I turned the water on, my own tears began to flow. Chapter 7. It wasn't an evening at the boathouse, that was for sure. If it had been up to me, I would have rather met Nick somewhere nicer. Anywhere the ketchup didn't come out of a group container with a plastic pump. At least the little burger joint Nick had taken me to was within walking distance of the gym. If needed, it would take less convincing for Patti to think this lunch was solely business-related. Nick carried our tray to a metal table in the corner. At first, it felt awkward, just as first dates often are. Thankfully, I knew how to steer conversations with men. Career guys enjoy talking about their accomplishments. It seemed calculated, but I figured it might help break the ice. So, owning your own business, wow. Compliments didn't hurt either. Do you have any other gyms besides Totally Fit? Nick smiled, obviously happy with the topic I'd chosen.
I just moved here from Arizona, where I have a couple of restaurants.
Impressive, I said, wondering if by restaurants he meant burger joints similar to this one. He cupped his chin, smiled, but didn't say anything. Getting a conversation going with him was proving to be a challenge. Seems like you've been working hard. More praise, not a lie though. He'd apparently beat all of us to the gym today. Rudy had rarely showed up before noon. Have you had a chance to see much of Sacramento yet?
Not really.
He reached for a handful of fries and managed to stuff them all in his mouth without any falling out.
Work's been keeping me pretty busy.
I stared at him in amazement. Had he actually swallowed all those fries without chewing?
Which is what I wanted to talk to you about.
Work. I pursed my lips. Really? Is that why you asked me to lunch? Funny, I didn't sound that disappointed. I didn't feel that disappointed either.
Mostly.
He reached down to the floor, snapped open his briefcase, and pulled out a pad of paper, which he set on the table.
You've been an aerobics instructor at Totally Fit for quite a few years now. How do you think it's going?
Great, until 2 days ago. Now it felt like an inquisition. Fine, I guess.
And you teach?
It was all I could do not to sigh. Didn't Rudy have this written down somewhere? Zumba, aerobics, kickboxing.
Do you think there's a pattern to how many people show up for a class?
Pretty much, I said, feeling like I should be on the payroll right now. Seriously, this was the most boring semi-date of my life. I couldn't even think of a compliment to throw at him. Having lost my appetite, I checked my watch. Friday nights are pretty dead. I gave him a meaningful look. With it being date night and all. He held my gaze a moment, then turned back to his paper, jotting down notes.
Are Saturdays dead too?
Yes, I sighed, bored to death of the work talk. Why don't you tell me something about yourself? He looked up at me and stared, apparently mute. You know, I gestured with my hand, like, what do you do for fun? He leaned back in his seat but didn't put down the pen.
Once the snow drops, I plan to hit the slopes in Tahoe.
Oh, I love to ski. Progress. Now we were getting somewhere. What do you do for fun before it snows? You know, in the spring. Sometimes you had to spell it out for men. Like now. He watched me bite into my hamburger. I made a special point of chewing carefully, hoping he'd follow my lead. Maybe it'd help him avoid receiving the Heimlich one day. He gave me that dimpled half-smile again.
Most women with a body like yours graze on salad, dressing on the side.
I paused mid-chew. The guy needed to be retrained on giving compliments. We're at a hamburger place, not a salad bar. He cleared his throat.
Anything else you can think of to explain your more popular classes?
No, 100 times no.
So, who takes Zumba?
His fries were gone, but his hamburger lay untouched on his plate. Interesting.
Women, men?
Mostly women, but we do have 2 guys. I studied him, wondering if he could dance. Feel free to drop in sometime. Nick laughed.
Me? I don't think so.
Why not? Don't you like to dance?
Sure.
He shrugged.
At a club or something. But I'm not a dance class kind of guy.
Well then. I leaned forward in my seat, thinking that if we were dancing, then we wouldn't have to be talking. I guess if I want to dance with you, it'll have to be at a club. His eyes flicked to mine as if the idea had finally occurred to him.
Know of any good clubs around here?
Jackpot. I kept my gaze on his. Plenty. He considered my answer for a few seconds, then leaned forward in his chair.
How about Friday?
Tomorrow night? Finally, he'd asked me out on a real date. But there was still Patti's rule to contend with. Why don't you call me?
I will. By the way,
he finally reached for his burger.
Red's a great color on you.
Thanks. A decent compliment and a date, even though I hadn't officially accepted. Things were starting to look up. So why did I still feel down? Thanks. I tipped the pizza delivery gal and breathed in the yummy scent of pepperoni and cheese. I kicked the door closed, then brought our dinner to the coffee table. Pizza's here. Patti came in from her room and flipped on the TV. Aw, honey, you cooked. Your turn tomorrow night. I handed Patti a slice on a napkin, then noticed the red light blinking on my cell. I dialed into my voicemail to check my messages.
Hi, it's Nick, checking to see if we're on for tomorrow night. Call me.
I glanced at Patti, wondering if she'd give me the thumbs up. Then my phone announced message number 2. Mel, it's me, Erica. This is the 3rd message I've left you, so call me back. We need to talk. I pressed the delete button, then my phone informed me I had another message.
Hello, Melanie, it's your mother. Ron and I are leaving this weekend and we'll be gone for 3 weeks. We'll be hiking and camping in the mountains, so we won't have cell reception. Just wanted to let you know. Call if you get a chance. Bye.
I hung up the phone and tossed it on the sofa chair, wondering who Ron was and how long she'd keep him around. Hearing her voice made me want to dial her number, but then I remembered Kristen's comment about people not being done with me just because I'd hurt them. Yeah, right. Tell that to my mom. Clearly, having a kid cramped her style or she wouldn't have needed to go find herself. Patti picked up the remote and started flipping through channels.
Who was that on the phone?
Taking a seat on the sofa, I reached for my pizza slice. My mom. She's going hiking for 3 weeks with some guy I've never heard of, and she wants me to call her before she goes. Patti kept her eyes on the TV. Are you going to? I don't know. I bit off the pizza corner, cheese and sauce oozing in my mouth. What's the point? Because she's your mom? She settled on a channel, then set the remote down. I know how flaky she is, but in her defense, she called, 10 times or so? And you're the one who hasn't called her back. I shrugged. I don't have anything to say to her. Sure you do. Patti turned to face me. You have plenty to say, which is why you're not returning her calls. I did not want to avoid anything anymore, but I didn't want to think about my mom. Nick's officially asked me out, I blurted, just to change the subject. I need your almighty permission to say yes. Rule number 2 and all. She wiggled her eyebrows. Ah, the Italian stallion. Ha ha. I let her get her kicks out while I swallowed my bite. So can I go out with him? No. Patti's voice went flat. I already told you not to date where you work. Oh, come on. I'd played by her bylaws, and now she was saying no? That was not a rule. You merely said it in passing. Silence. I felt like smacking Patti with the pizza box, but figured that wouldn't help me achieve my goal. Part of me wondered why I was even trying, though. Did I really want to go out with Nick? Remembering his cute smile, I told myself that, of course I did. Nick is super nice. It took all my effort to sound interested. He has potential, really, so per our agreement, I'm requesting permission to accept the date, okay? No. Patti's voice was gruff. At least not until you answer some questions. I hadn't expected that one. Fine. How did he ask you out? I rolled my eyes. We were talking about my dance classes, then he asked if I wanted to go to a club. I see, she said, making me wonder what she saw. He's a clubber, one of those guys. He's not, I said, because it seemed to be true. He hasn't been to any club since he moved to SAC, and I'm actually the one who brought up the club thing. I don't know how often he went in Arizona, though. He just moved here. Doesn't sound like you know too much about him. She gave me a skeptical look. Do you like him? I winced. Sometimes she was so insightful it was scary. He seems nice, I said, then remembered how hard it had been to keep a flowing conversation with him. But I guess I don't know yet. Patti smiled. So he's not the one. I picked up a pillow off the couch and smacked her with it. She busted up laughing, grabbed another pillow, then hit me back. Fine, you can have one date with the Italian studmeister. But you'd better get to know a lot more about him if you expect permission for another date. Thanks, Patti. I picked up a second slice of pizza. I'll even find out his shoe size. Definitely find out his shoe size, Patti laughed. By verbal means only, Boyfriend Bylaw number 4. Chapter 8. I strode into Totally Fit on Friday morning and rounded the desk, hoping Matt wouldn't stop me. He was reading a book, but glanced up as I passed by. What's the word? You tell me, I said, slowing my pace but avoiding his eyes. That again. He sounded annoyed. Ugh. I nodded enthusiastically. Great word. Be sure to let Steve know because I have to do something. Like avoid accidentally touching him so he doesn't cringe, or make sure he doesn't ask me if I'm going out with Nick. Not that it was a secret since I was allowed to date whomever I wanted. Why did I feel the need to remind myself of that? I walked into the locker room, sat on one of the uncomfortable metal benches, and pulled out a People magazine to keep me occupied while waiting for my Zumba class to start. After only a few minutes, Erica arrived and stopped in front of me. You're avoiding me just like you're avoiding your mother. Without looking up from my magazine, I flipped a page. Not true.
I'd avoided my mom much longer, totally different. We've been friends for years, Mel. She dropped down on the bench. You can't keep ignoring me. All evidence to the contrary. I turned the page and stared at an Oscar nominee who wore a black strapless gown and heels splattered with diamonds. Why does she have to wear 7 figures worth of diamonds to cover her feet? Like any of us could really tell if she'd used cubic zirconia, or maybe she did. Erica snatched the magazine out of my hands. I said I'm sorry for what I said about Matt. Are you ever going to forgive me? Stealing my people is not helping your cause. I grabbed it back, but left it closed. You messed things up between Matt and me. Well, I'd messed things up too, but she didn't need to know about my part in it. It's not like I was mad at myself. Much. I know. Her voice seemed to catch, which was odd. Erica never got emotional. It wasn't my intention, and I wish I could go back and be honest with you. But I can't, so tell me how I can make things better between us and I'll do it. Even though it was hard, I met her eyes. Just give me some time, okay? Time. Her eyes grew large, as if she wanted to make sure I wasn't just blowing her off. Yes, I shooed her off with my hands. Let me sort this out on my own while you go have fun with Mario. You can tell me all about him next week, all right? Okay. She stood slowly, seeming to understand our friendship wasn't over. Mario's old news, but I'm sure I'll have someone new by next week. Sounds good, I said, and I meant it. After my second aerobics class, I headed for the locker room to shower, then tensed at the familiar ring from my cell. Pressing my lips together tightly, I fumbled for the phone and slid my finger over the flashing green light. Caitlin. I'd already received 3 voicemails from her, and it wasn't even 10 in the morning. Hello? I'm so glad I reached you. Caitlin's panicked voice came through the line. Please tell me you don't have plans tonight. I have a cake tasting appointment, and I desperately need my maid of honor. A cake emergency. Great. Isn't that something you'd want to do with His name stuck in my throat. You're a fiancé? I asked him to come, but you know men. Caitlin laughed as if she'd said the funniest thing in the world. Not really. It was so the truth. I hadn't anticipated Brad dumping me. Then Matt, who'd once thought the world of me, now acted like touching me would be infectious. And the only pro about a conversation with Nick was that we had nowhere to go but up. Knowledge of men? Me? Not so much. So you'll be there for the tasting? Caitlin sounded hopeful. 6 o'clock? I'll treat you to dinner after, somewhere nice. Actually, I have class at 6. I breathed a sigh of relief. Going cake tasting for Paul and Caitlin's wedding ranked right up there with getting a spray tan in the middle of the basketball court during a Sacramento Kings game. Sorry, but I can't get out of work. It's a set schedule every week. I understand. She sounded unusually agreeable. I'll change the appointment to 7:30. Keeping the phone against my ear, I rolled my eyes toward the ceiling. Are they really open that late? Meet me in front of Dreamy Delights at 7:25 with your taste buds ready. You're the bestest sissy ever. Bye-bye. I stared at my cell phone screen. Call ended. Arg. I bit my bottom lip, then tapped my phone to lock it. I really did want to be a good maid of honor for Caitlin, but how could I with my ex as the groom-to-be? The cheating ex who had to have been two-timing me with the bride-to-be. I mean, it's not like we'd broken up that long ago. Maybe Nick could help me decide what to do about Paul. If there was anything to do, that is. If I was going to get to know Nick, then that should include venting to him. So I went down the hall and knocked on his office door. Come in, he called out. Opening the door, I entered to find Nick sitting at his desk and staring at his computer screen. Good morning, Nick. Hi. His face lit up and he gestured to the chair across from him. You're just the person I wanted to see. I am. I slid into the chair and crossed my legs slowly. His eyes dropped from my face to my legs. I went by your class this morning.
Can I ask you something first? I need a man's opinion. My eyes floated to the name plaque on his desk that read Nick Zambini. Suddenly my eyes flared. In the very unlikely event that things worked out between us, I'd become Melanie Zambini? Ick. Another strike against Nick and me. They were really stacking up.
Okay.
Nick eyed my legs a moment longer, then leaned back in his chair with that dimpled smile.
Shoot.
I have this friend. Not a lie, a person could be her own friend, right? She really liked this guy. He laced his fingers together in his lap.
Past tense, huh?
Definitely past tense. I bit my lip. Past for me, but not my stepsister. Paul was going to be her future, which meant he'd be my future too. Ugh. Anyway, this guy cheated on her. Nick nodded.
So she dropped him?
Well, no, she didn't know he cheated until after he'd broken it off with her. Nick raised his brows.
Huh.
So then, I paused, wondering what his raised brows meant. What?
Nothing.
He sighed.
It's just that a girl knows when her boyfriend's strayed. Woman's intuition and all of that. Maybe your friend didn't want to admit it to you, but she knew.
As if. I shook my head. No, she would have told me, believe me.
She knew.
No, she didn't, I gritted out.
She knew.
He said it so confidently that my mind raced for clues that Paul hadn't been faithful. Sure, he'd worked late a lot, but successful men had to put in the hours. But it had been a clue I'd completely ignored. Had I been that desperate to be in a relationship? My chest went hollow. Yes, I had been. The truth was, I hadn't known Paul that well, hadn't taken the time to get to know him. I'd been too busy trying to make sure he wouldn't leave me, like my mom had. Had my fear of him leaving made my woman's intuition malfunction? The idea was overwhelming. How could I ever trust myself again when it came to relationships? Was I going to abide by the boyfriend bylaws forever? I started to hyperventilate and decided a change of subject was needed pronto. Didn't you say you wanted to see me about something? He reached beneath his desk and pulled a white plastic bag with "Totally Fit" written in snazzy red letters outlined in black.
This is your new uniform.
He handed it to me.
It's from my cousin Peter's new clothing line, and he asked if his photographer could snap some photos of the employees later this week for ads and stuff, if you don't mind.
That's fine. The only thing I minded was ignoring the clues about Paul being faithful.
By the way,
Nick leaned onto his elbows and looked me in the eye.
I wanted to give you a heads up. We're changing the aerobic schedule and we'll only need you 3 days a week from now on.
I clamped my teeth together. You're cutting my schedule in half? He nodded.
It just isn't profitable for the business. I hope you understand.
Oh, I understood plenty. When it came to men, I had zero intuition. The guy I was about to start dating had just nixed half my income. I uncrossed my legs and rose from my chair, my legs wobbling as I stood. How would I make rent? When does the new schedule come out?
On Monday, but it won't take effect for a week.
Okay. I squeezed the plastic bag and turned to the door, anxious to hurry home and throw myself under the covers.
Wait a sec,
he said, holding a hand in the air. I blinked, wondering how this morning could possibly get any worse.
I tried to reach you last night, but didn't hear back. Are you still up for heading to that club you know tonight?
It was the last thing I wanted to do, but I'd set the whole thing in play. The least I could do was take the guy dancing. Sure.
Great.
He bent toward his desk, slid a pad to the center, and scribbled a phone number.
How about you give me a call and let me know the address of the club so I can meet you?
All right. I accepted the paper, our fingers touching in the exchange, but all I felt was irritation. Matt wouldn't have met me there, just like Matt wouldn't have cheated on me the way Paul had. Matt would have picked me up like the gentleman he was. He would have been faithful. He would have made life yumsy. My phone chirped as I walked out of Nick's office, and I leaned against the wall to take Caitlin's 5th call of the day. Hello? Hi, sis. Just wanted to let you know that Dreamy Delights was able to move the cake tasting to 7:30. They're staying open late just for me. I kind of had to talk them into it. I put a hand to my forehead, feeling a headache coming on. Okay, but just the cake tasting, Caitlin, no dinner. I'm supposed to go dancing with... Did you say dancing after? Caitlin squealed. Is this like a surprise bachelorette party? Should I invite friends? Bachelorette party? Oh, no way. What? Wait. Oh, Mel, you're the best maid of honor ever. I mean it, the best ever. Caitlin, gotta run and buy a new outfit, something that'll match a veil. Don't get one that's too long, and please, no tacky penises pinned to it. I'm so excited, thanks. Wait, I yelled, but the perky voice had disconnected. I hit redial twice to get Caitlin back, but got sent directly to voicemail each time. No doubt Caitlin was on the line with her sorority sisters already, telling them about the perfect bachelorette party I now had to throw. Arg! Suddenly, a handsome face appeared in front of me. Tough morning? Yumsy. My face heated. Matt, what are you doing back here? It's my last day and I have to fill out some paperwork in Nick's office. He touched my arm. What were you yelling about? Sorry. My heart pounded and I told myself it was from panic over Caitlin's bachelorette party, not Matt's touch. It's my stepsister. Being her maid of honor is going to put me into cardiac arrest. He nodded sympathetically. Sounds stressful. You have no idea. I laughed, then realized we were having a normal conversation. His hand was also still holding my forearm. She's getting married in a month, and apparently I'm throwing her a bachelorette party tonight, even though I'm supposed to be going to the Oasis with Nick. Matt frowned, and his hand dropped. You're going dancing with Nick? Yes, I bit my lip, confused at what I wanted, and even more confused about what Matt wanted. And it seems we'll be accompanied by a horde of sorority girls. Wanna come? Chapter 9. After consuming way too many calories on overpriced wedding cake, I arrived at the Oasis. Nick met me at the entrance and we spent a total of 2 minutes together before he strode off with the club owner, Elliot Whittle. That left me with the bachelorette party from Hyperville. Despite my joking invitation to Matt, I knew he wouldn't come, but I couldn't help wishing he would. I think the bride needs a shot of alcohol. Ashley, one of Caitlin's sorority sisters, shoved her face into mine, her pupils big and black under the strobe lights. Maybe another round for all of us? Her breath smelled like tequila and my nostrils flared. I'm okay with my rum and cola still. Caitlin waved her glass in front of her friend, who then disappeared up to the bar. I think Ash is a little wasted. I turned to my stepsister, who looked regal in an ankle-length white veil. Could I really let her marry Paul DeWitt, the cheater? I'd had so little time to process the whole thing, let alone sit down to have that uncomfortable chat. You sure you don't want another one? It is your bachelorette party. No thanks. She smiled and sipped through a red straw. I'm perfect. As always, Caitlin looked perfect. She positively glowed in a camel-colored silk chiffon dress, and despite the small fortune I'd spent buying Caitlin drinks, she didn't even look slightly buzzed. The perfection drove me crazy. Unfortunately, her friends weren't as perfect, since one of them had splashed their red drink on my favorite pink top, leaving a noticeable stain above my left boob. Be right back. Deciding that I needed a drink, even if Caitlin didn't, I snapped my purse shut and headed for the bar. Wait! Ginger came up beside me. I'll come with you. Don't listen to Caitlin! A brunette named Heidi grabbed my arm, jumped up and down, then squealed.
She totally needs more drinks. It's her last night out as a single lady. Party! I leaned toward Ginger's ear. This reminds me of college, only I'm 27 and sober. What's wrong with me? Someone has to be the responsible sober one. Ginger laughed. Don't worry, we'll get our turn one day. Would I? I closed my eyes and a vision of Matt popped into my head. He wore a wedding ring and smiled at me in his special way, like I'd made his day just by being there. Only, instead of the gym, we were at home in bed. He rolled toward me and asked what the word of the day was. Mel? Caitlin waved a hand in front of my face. I'll go with you to get the drinks. Snapping out of it, I nodded. Let's go. Caitlin held my hips as we squeezed through the crowd and made our way to the bar. I stiffened at the contact. Why was Caitlin acting like we were best friends? Since the day she'd invaded my home, she'd shown me up time and time again. Now she was marrying my ex. 10 years living in Caitlin's shadow didn't exactly give me the warm fuzzies toward her. Still, when I turned and looked into her bright-eyed face, I knew I'd have to tell her about Paul and me. The question was, when? When was a good time to tell your stepsister that you'd dated her fiancé not so long ago? Ignoring my dilemma, I concentrated on the task at hand by squeezing onto the last empty bar stool and waving crisp green bills at the bartender. I need drinks! Despite myself, I laughed at the absurdity of this situation. Actually, could you just get me a water? Caitlin adjusted the headband on her veil. I haven't had this many drinks since college, and I need to pace myself. I gaped at my stepsister, amazed that we were actually on the same page for once in our lives. As I was staring, her headband popped off, flew back through the air, and landed in front of some guy's feet, the end of her veil beneath his coffee-brown loafers. Sorry about that. The deep male voice sounded so familiar that I leaned back on the stool and peered behind Caitlin. Warm, brown eyes looked back at me, and my breath caught. Matt. I shook my head viciously, sure that the one drink I'd had earlier was making me hallucinate. It couldn't be him. Why would he possibly come? I leaned back further in my seat, lost my balance, and fell backward off the stool. I landed on my side with an oof, then rolled over and stared up at Matt and Caitlin, who both hovered over me. You okay, Mel? Caitlin's tone was filled with concern. If you can call thoroughly embarrassed okay. I handed her the cash I still clutched. Would you get the drinks I ordered from the bar? She took the money and stood. I'll be right back. Sprawled out on a barroom floor, I stared up at Matt. What are you doing here? Helping you up. Matt reached for my hand and pulled me to my feet. I came with Steve and Erica. They wanted to take me out since today was my last day. Nostalgia washed over me with the gang all in the same place. So you just happened to come to the Oasis? He shrugged. You invited me, remember? Plus, it's a public place. You don't own it. True. Laughing, I took a step closer to Matt, who looked amazingly hot in slacks and a collared shirt. Major improvement from the sweats he wore to work at Totally Fit. Well, when he used to work there. My heart sank, and I lifted my eyes from his chest to his face and squinted at him. I can't believe you don't work at Totally Fit anymore. Matt drained his beer bottle, then reached for my hand. Let's dance. After he'd avoided my touch as if I had an easily transmitted skin condition, the feel of his hand around mine brought tears to my eyes. I can't. I'm here on a date. He squeezed my hand, let go, then made a big point of looking around the club in a 360-degree turn. Funny, I don't see Nick anywhere. One dance. It was a fast song, so what harm could there be? Feeling nervous in every cell of my body, I followed him to the dance floor, where we pushed our way through the gyrating bodies right to the center. He turned around and faced me. I lost my breath. Then he smiled and started dancing. With a range of emotion shooting through me, I decided to concentrate on what I knew best, dancing.
Moving to the beat, I felt my body take over, even though my mind kept slipping back to the fact that this guy moving in front of me, dancing in the sexiest way, was Matt. I swung my shoulders in time with the beat while simultaneously unable to stop staring at him. Somehow, the first song slipped into the next, then the next, and soon I was lost in the world of dancing, a place where I'd always been able to escape the reality of my life. The music flowed through me, creating a safe place from pain. Somehow, right now, Matt had slipped into that world. The music died down, then switched into a slow beat. Matt took a step toward me. I bit my lip, but didn't pull away when his arms slipped around me slowly, one and then the other. His chin rested against the side of my head, and I closed my eyes as we swayed with the song. Feeling a hum by my ear, I tilted my head up slightly and realized he was singing. Chills ran through me with each word about loss, regret, and love slipping away. The song ended way too soon. We stayed where we were with his arms around me and my hands on his chest. Fear swept over me and my stomach knotted. I should get back to Caitlin. Matt opened his mouth to say something, but I scurried toward the group of tipsy girls surrounding my stepsister with her long white veil draping perfectly over her red hair. Caitlin's eyes flipped to mine. Who was that? She looked up at me with wide eyes, curious and trusting. Something inside me flipped, and no matter how humiliated I felt, I couldn't stand that she didn't know the truth. I pulled her aside from the girls to a few empty chairs by the windows. I have to tell you something, and there's no easy way to say it. Caitlin lowered her chin and blinked. Okay. I sucked in a breath. Paul DeWitt is my ex. She stared at me as if waiting for the punchline. Huh? We went out a couple months ago for a few weeks until he broke it off with me. I hated the shocked look on her face, but she had to know before she married him. Tears formed in her eyes. Did you say I'm engaged to your ex? This all happened so fast, and I didn't know how to tell you. My heart pounded like a drum against my ribcage. I'm so sorry, Caitlin. Her eyes narrowed. He cheated on me. With you. I nodded, knowing I had to be the world's worst maid of honor. I didn't know you were seeing him, and there's no way he knew I was your sister because he looked shocked when I saw him the other night. Her eyes grew wide and a tear spilled down her cheek. You just called me your sister. That was the part she was focusing on? Yeah. She held her cheeks, fat tears streaming down between her fingers. Since we were 15 years old, you've always called me your stepsister, never your sister. Suddenly, my own vision blurred. I didn't mean to hurt you, Caitlin. I know. She reached for my hands and held them. I'm so dumping that cheating finkhead. But not me. The world around me swayed as I exposed my heart and waited to see if Caitlin would stomp on it. No way, Mel. She shook her head fervently. We're family. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I wrapped my arms around my sister and held her to me. Ginger decided to take Caitlin home since she'd planned to spend the night at her place anyway. They'd piled the 3 sorority sisters in Ginger's back seat, then sped off with vows to never trust another man again. I'd thrown the worst bachelorette party ever. Worse than that, I'd hurt Caitlin. But she was my sister, and she'd forgiven me since that's what family did when one of us screwed up. As I watched Ginger's car speed away through the club's window, Nick picked that exact moment to show up. Elliot Whittle and I scheduled a lunch for next week, he said, apparently unaware that I couldn't have cared less. He's interested in expanding to Arizona, and I have an ideal location in mind. Great, I said flatly. I'd gone from the worst bachelorette party to the worst date. Could the guy ever talk about anything else besides work? Isn't that Steve? He pointed to the dance floor where Steve, Erica, and Matt were dancing and laughing. My entire body tensed when Erica, who'd been leaning toward Matt, glanced up at me. I'd make up with her, I knew, but her lie still stung, especially since it had changed things between Matt and me. So I looked away. Nick squeezed my shoulder and nudged me forward.
Let's go dance.
No thanks. I leaned back, breaking his grasp. You go ahead. I'm going to head home.
See you Monday then,
he said, then made his way to the dance floor. And I didn't even care. It made me ache to watch the gang having fun without me, but we wouldn't all be together anymore, and I needed to accept that. Holding my evening bag, I hurried out the door, and the cool evening air washed over me. It was only 2 blocks to my car, so it didn't matter that I hadn't brought a jacket. I unlocked Betty and was about to slip inside when I saw Matt striding up the sidewalk toward me.
What happened to your date?
He said. My pulse raced as I wondered why he'd followed me out here. It wasn't much of a date, but it's over.
Does this mean you're single again?
My heart started pounding, and I leaned back against Betty, hugging myself from the cold. I wasn't not single. He was just a guy I went out with once. Not the one, or even anyone special. He stood next to me, then leaned back against Betty.
Erica told me what she'd said to you.
My head whipped toward him. She did? His eyes were serious.
Last year, after she and I had gone out a couple times, she said she told you I was a player.
I nodded, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. I didn't tell you about Erica because I felt guilty for believing her. I know you, and you're not that kind of person. He brushed my hair back from my face.
She apologized, too. She thinks what she said kept you from admitting how you felt about me.
She's wrong, I said strongly. He pulled away, wearing a confused look. Turning to face him, I slipped my arms around his neck. I kept myself from admitting how I felt about you. I think I was scared.
Of?
You? Me? I shook my head. What if it doesn't work? He cupped my face in his hands.
What if it does?
I bit my lip, tears filling my eyes. What if I fall in love with you, then 10 years down the road you decide you don't want me? He brushed his hand against my cheek.
That would never happen.
Staring up into his eyes, a feeling came over me, and I believed him. A sob escaped, my shoulders shook, and 10 years of emotion came pouring out of me. It happened with my mom. Why not you too?
I'm sorry, beautiful.
He slipped his arms around me, pulled me tight against him, and held me.
Your mom's crazy for leaving you. I'm not crazy.
I buried my head in his shoulder, trying to catch my breath, and his spicy scent flooded through me. He tucked my hair behind my ear, then kissed the top of my head. His gentleness filled me with warmth. I tilted my face up toward his, leaned toward him, and our lips were only a breath away when he pulled back.
What about the Boyfriend Bylaws?
He said. A small laugh escaped. How do you know about that?
Erica filled me in.
He ran his hands along my arms, then his fingertips skimmed my neck, sending chills throughout my body. Then he slid his thumbs over both of my cheeks, wiping them dry.
She warned me that if I kissed you without permission from your roommate, you'd lose your car.
Betty. On my tiptoes, I rested my chin on his shoulder and stared down at what had been my shiny blue security blanket. I loved Betty, but I needed to start making my own decisions. I could call Patti, try to get permission, but I needed to break free of her rules. She'd hold me to our deal, though, and I was okay with that. Tearing my eyes from Betty, I gazed up at Matt, then tilted my mouth toward his. Her rules were good, but I don't need them anymore. He pressed his finger against my lips.
I don't want you to lose your car.
It hurt to lose Betty, but it couldn't end any other way. It's okay.
Not with me,
he said, then fumbled with something in his back pocket. He pulled out his cell phone, ran a finger across the screen, then showed me the display.
I texted Patti and got permission.
The bright screen lit up between us, and there was a text from Patti's cell phone number.
Mel lights up every time she talks about you, Matt.
If she's willing to take a chance with you, then our girl has finally made the right choice. Permission granted." Touched beyond belief, I smiled, then threw my arms around him. "You clever guy." The corners of his mouth turned upward. "Anything to make you smile." "Then kiss me." With my hand on the back of his neck, I brought him closer, then whispered, "We've waited long enough." We moved toward each other at the same time until our lips finally met. His mouth felt strong and warm against mine, sending tingles throughout my body. Then I ran my teeth along his bottom lip and pulled it into my mouth, wanting to taste every bit of him. He parted my lips and I melted against him. Then I gasped as our kiss deepened and he tasted me slowly, as if to savor every moment, as if this is what he'd been waiting for. And he had. We both had. When the bubble around my heart faded, I knew our word of the day was love. Chapter 10. I got home at midnight to find Patti on the living room sofa watching a movie. Patti reached for the remote and hit pause. "So?" Leaning back against the door to close it, I was still floating from Matt's kisses. "How did you know?" Her mouth twitched. "Know what?" Forcing my legs to move, I came into the living room and sat on the couch next to her. "How did you know he was for me?" Patti gave me a satisfied look. "I've known you since you were 11, Mel. You think I couldn't tell how you felt about him? You avoided him like crazy by dating any other available man." I gave her a huge hug. "Thanks, Patti, for being my friend and for the Boyfriend Bylaws." She hugged me back. "What can I say? Sometimes a friend's just got to step in. After all, friends don't let friends date badly." I pulled back and raised an eyebrow at her. "Oh, good. That means I get to work on you next." Patti and I talked until well past midnight. She'd heard of a job opening at a local private school, and I was so ready to apply. I'd earned my bachelor's degree in early childhood education, and it was about time I put it to good use. If I missed aerobics, I could still teach that on the side. Even though it was almost 1 a.m. and 2 hours later from my mom in Colorado, I dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring. "Hello?" "Hi, Mom. It's Melanie." I hesitated, wanting to tell her so much about my life, but one thing most of all. "I've met someone, Mom. I've met the one." "Oh, darling." Her voice filled with emotion. I knew in that instant it would be okay. That I was ready to listen to her now, accept that she wasn't perfect, that she'd made mistakes, and that I could learn to forgive her. "I'm going to put on a pot of coffee so you can tell me all about him," she said. And I did.
This has been The Mischievous Matchmaker, River City Sweethearts, written by Susan Hatler, narrated by Martha Lee. Copyright 2013 by Susan Hatler. Production copyright 2014 by Susan Hatler. Susan Hatler is a New York Times best-selling author of sweet, heartfelt romances filled with humor and emotion, as well as captivating young adult novels. Her books have charmed readers worldwide and have been translated from English into German, Italian, French, Spanish, Dutch, and Portuguese. A born optimist, Susan believes life is amazing, people are fascinating, and imagination is endless. She loves spending time with her unforgettable characters and hopes that you will too.